What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Fire's Fire. As always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, the talented RJ Ellis and Dr. Brian Paul. Today, we're joined by Real Deal Resin. I'm super stoked to welcome Sam and Dustin to the show. I've been following what they're doing for, I think, since their inception, and their brand and their ethos has really spoken to me. I grew up watching wrestling and sneaking away, and my parents telling me not to watch it and watching it. And so, you know, when they developed this brand and came to market, it was something that really spoke to me, and I followed it closely. And they've done some really interesting stuff on the marketing side and you know, been garnered a really big name for themselves. And I thought they were a lot bigger company than they were. And so connecting with them and learning more about them, I just was super stoked to have them on the show. So without further, talk, let's bring them in. Welcome to the show, Sam and Dustin. What up, guys?
What's up? Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time.
Yo, just to echo what Jameson said, yeah, I legit, and I think that's with like a lot of things. These, successful people and successful businesses, you always think that there's a massive team behind them, but really it's all about heart and hard work. And, it's amazing what 1, 2, or potentially 3 people can do when they really have their mind and heart set in the right place.
So, before we jump in, because there's so much, there's memes, there's marketing strategy, there's resin, there's a ton of stuff that we want to cover and we will cover. But in every show, we always kind of want to take it back and let the viewers learn a little bit more about you guys as individuals and what you guys were like growing up. And so I want to start with Dustin and kind of just take it back for us. I know you guys connected in university, but what was life like for you before that? What was growing up like? Where'd you grow up?
So I'm from Western Pennsylvania and suburbs north of Pittsburgh, and it was just kind of like rural life out there. I was at kind of a smaller school growing up, and then I went to college where I met Sam. And throughout high school, I started smoking weed when I was in 7th or 8th grade. So we started early, and I never really hustled or anything though. I just liked smoking the plant because of how it made me feel. I was a real heavy drinker in high school, and we would drink so much that by the time I got to my senior year, I developed a hole in the liner of my stomach. So every morning I'd wake up sick, and I ended up having 40 tardies my senior year. And that's when I told my parents that the only thing that settled my stomach was weed. So that's kind of when they accepted that I was a smoker. And then, so they let me start doing it, not daily, but pretty often throughout the week when I was a senior. And then by the time I got to college, I was kind of relying on it to just deal with the stress from being a freshman, the new college atmosphere. It really helped me out. I went to college originally for childhood education, special education, because I like kids, because they keep it real, and it kind of echoes back to our brand, because I realized quickly how fake everybody in life can be as an adult, and there's a lot of ulterior motives floating around. But working with kids, they really shoot it straight and they keep it real, and it's just it keeps you young and invigorated. So that was my original plan, but I was just dumb in college and I got in some trouble, so I couldn't be a teacher then. So I switched my major to communication, and then it was a long story. I actually withdrew. I worked full time as a janitor, and then I worked at a conference center while going back to school. Made the dean's list. I went back to the university I dropped out from, met Sam, and then I was in my senior year when I ended up dropping out again to move to Cali. So long story short.
That's very cool, man. That even makes the dropping out for cannabis even sweeter, because you worked hard to swing back and take a second run at it. So that's fucking really cool, man. Sam,
good on for you for getting back to it. There's not many people that fucking drop out of school and then say, I need to relook at this. They usually say, fuck it. So good on you, man.
Yeah. Sam, what was it like for you? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up Western Pennsylvania, but south. I have a big family. I got 5 brothers and 1 sister. No one in my family really smoked, I thought. Growing up, I didn't really know much about it until my one buddy showed me it, when I was 15. We smoked some weed, and I loved it ever since.
So what was your first experience with cannabis? How old were you?
15. Yeah.
And was it not a family member or was that a
No,
friend?
it was my buddy actually.
No. And did you get high the first time?
Yeah, definitely. I broke my leg the next day. It was
Okay, so
crazy.
elaborate on that. How'd you break your leg? Were you getting high and you fell off a fucking chair?
No, I was playing. It was actually weird. I was playing baseball and I slid into somebody and it just snapped.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
pretty
So,
wild.
And was that the push? Was that the push to get you to like look at cannabis as maybe a medicine, or was that just the time for you to relax and start smoking more?
Yeah, pretty much. I just like to smoke, really.
yeah, absolutely. So was it like an immediate love? Like after that, you smoked weed, you broke your leg, and then you're in a situation now where you're laid up for a while with not limited
for
things
sure.
to do.
Then I went and visited my cousin, and he went to Penn State, and I went and stayed with him for 2 weeks and just sat and smoked a volcano, got higher than I could ever imagine. And then ever since then, I just love smoking. I just started smoking every day. I would just go. Me and my buddies would all pitch $5, get a gram, and smoke whatever we could get.
How expensive are your grams that you got multiple buddies pitching $5?
$5, 4 buddies, $5, get 20 a G. Yeah. If you want good shit, 20 a G.
Holy shit, man!
Yeah, that's how it was.
Can't imagine what rosin would be like with that kind of prices.
I know, right? But then I went to college. I went to Kent State for 1 year. But it was too expensive, so I transferred to Slippery Rock. But I met a lot of good dudes in Kent, like weed-wise.
I was gonna say, what did the cannabis look like back then? Was that like, you said beasters? Was it all
No, there
beasters
was
and
some
you had to
fire.
buy,
There was definitely some fire around. They called them petties.
There was homegrown too
Yeah.
that like local old heads would grow, so it would come straight from like their closet. So you're like the first person touching it. So like there's honestly back then just as good, if not better, weed because you weren't dealing with any chain of command. You were getting it straight from a home grower that took care of 8 plants, But there was a lot of shit from Canada that would come down. It's called beasters.
Beasters, yeah.
And what's the laws like?
Totally illegal. We were
Yeah.
fucking renegades.
If
It's
you
all
get caught,
cowboys.
you're fucked.
So when you guys were in university, were you guys smoking flower? Were you dabbing at that point? Like
When we met, we were dabbing.
okay.
We were smoking live resin, shatter.
So when did you guys start dabbing? Like were you using titanium swings? Like what year?
2013, I want to say it was. For
Sam
me,
started before me. I was just selling packs, and Sam actually was the oil plug for me. So I had to get my head stash from him, and so he got me into dabbing. I went over to his apartment, and that's the first time I saw like motherships or like heady rigs. And honestly, Sam fucking
yeah, I had a homie that put me on and
That's
showed me
awesome.
everything.
shout out Dylan.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you guys connect and then you guys start working together in university. And then who comes up with the idea to like, was it immediate? Like, yo, this is what we're going to do. You and me, we're building something here. Or was it just kind of like something that naturally happened? And
Just naturally happened, really.
yeah.
Honestly, I was in trouble because the state police came to my apartment because they knew I was trapping. Well, actually, this is a crazy story. So I was trapping at one apartment, and like everybody knew what I was doing, and so then I got robbed, and we found out the manager, like running the entire apartment complex, like gave the kid the code to rob me, and I was still under the lease to live there, and I was like, this is bullshit. Like I can just get set up whenever because they had the code to get in. It was a master code to put in to just come through your front door. So after I got robbed, I went to her and told her, this is bullshit. I know you set me up. You got to let me out of my lease. And she literally let me out of my lease. They never did that for anybody because she knew she was guilty. So I got out of my lease at this apartment complex, but my buddies were on the hockey team and they literally had the apartment like 4 doors down. So I went and lived with them for a couple months and just kept doing the same exact thing. But then my name wasn't on the paperwork at all. So she couldn't get me rated because I wasn't even living there. But what she did do, she was buddies with one of the state cops. She sent them over and they knocked on the door. One of the the hockey captain was afraid that they were gonna come in, so he just opened it for them. And they came in and like looked through our shit, and he pulled me outside specifically and like gave me this speech saying like, I know you think you're the shit, like I was like you in college too, but you're gonna graduate and be a nobody like everybody else. And he made me like come outside all of our apartments, and by this time everybody on our block was outside watching. And they found 2 of my bongs. I had like a sick little pulse, and my buddy had an Illadelph. I felt bad because it wasn't even my Illadelph. The cops made me take it outside and bust them in the street right in front of everybody. Like it was like an old school shakedown. Like they didn't have a warrant for anything. Yeah, the idiot opened the door, so it's what let him in. So they made me break the bongs. I acted like I was real scared because I had so much shit in the apartment. I didn't want them to look through everything. And so he just gave me the speech and told me I had to leave. And I was like, all right, yeah, that's cool. So from there, I moved to my ex-girlfriend's apartment at a different apartment complex, same college, kept trapping, and I would keep shit at my buddy's spot. And then that was just like fucked, and I needed a place to live. And Sam had an extra room in his apartment that wasn't being rented out, and that's literally, I think, how it all started.
The apartment people, like, they made us move together.
That
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we chose each other.
We did chose each other, but we was pretty much. If we didn't choose each other, they were going to choose us.
that's so cool.
That's how it was going to be, because he was with in an apartment, a 2-person apartment, which is 1 person, and I was the same way.
That's wild, man.
So it was crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking fate, and like, yeah.
And
So
what
how-
crazier thing is, like, so in the middle of when I was still living at that hockey house before it got like raided by the cops for the shakedown, I went to Venice Beach for the first time to California in my life. I went to Venice Beach on spring break, and I met some dude on the boardwalk at Venice Beach. There's crazy people everywhere, and he had tinfoil on his head, and he said, I'll read your fortune. And so I let him read my fortune, and he told me that I needed to move immediately. This was all before, this is like 2 weeks before I got back and got raided. He said, you need to move immediately. He said, you need to avoid a friend who's blonde. And the hockey captain that opened the door was a blonde kid, my buddy. And he said that I needed to move to California to grow the plant. And that's what this dude with tinfoil on his head told me on my spring break. And then literally,
So you did exactly what he told you.
Yeah, I ended up doing everything, and everything came true too.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yo, it's just because that dude was the cop.
He might have been the one that was the domino that started it all, I guess.
So, how long? So you first go out to Cali for a summer, is that correct? And you're just thinking, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to, get the lay of the land, and then come back. Is that the original plan, Dustin?
And did you
Kinda,
have like,
I was trapping on a smaller scale. I was still like an amateur, but I did come out, and I don't even think I got to link with any Cali people my first trip for spring break. I was just buying a bunch of head stash, and it just blew my mind that I could have all these delivery services come out. Like, that was the first time I got my medical card. I was at Venice, and I didn't realize you could just walk in these places, and I just told this doctor I had headaches, and they're like, all right, you need medical cannabis. I was like, holy shit. I went home and told all my buddies in college. So a couple months later, like, a bunch of us all came out, and I got all of them their med cards in Venice Beach. By that time I had like a plug in Venice, so he would pull up and I'd buy a bunch of slabs while we're out there, and we'd all do whatever, But that was in the very beginning. Shit, I don't know. That was probably like 6-7 years ago.
So you're in Venice, but where did you end up working? Were you working? You talked a little bit with Shiragam on the Hashishin about spending a summer where you didn't really get paid working in Cali. Was that subsequently after?
Yeah, that's like 3 or 4 years later. So that first trip, I was still in school. So I went back and I was still finishing school. I got to my senior year and I was at the summer break of my senior semester. So I had 1 semester left to get enough credits to graduate. And I had the opportunity to go out for the summer to grow under a guy. And it didn't pay much, but it was more of a learning experience and just like being in California. So I went out and it was supposed to be for like 3 months, but when I was supposed to go back for college, I just stayed because like I realized that was the opportunity that I was trying to position myself for the whole time. Yeah. And I didn't want to just walk away from what I had gotten to, And I figured I could always go back to college, but if I leave California, I might never have the balls or opportunity to go back. So I just stayed.
100%, man. I'm fucking glad you did, bro.
Me too.
Sam, what were you taking in school?
I got a math degree.
Sam graduated. He stayed back
Oh
and stuck it
shit,
out.
math, eh?
That's
You're the
awesome.
numbers man.
Yo, I would not. That's so cool.
Dude, it sucks. I don't
Dude,
recommend
it
it to anybody.
Yo, we should
Hilarious.
we should hang out and run some
Oh,
derivatives,
bro.
bro.
I guess
Yeah.
you probably don't apply a lot of that to everyday life anymore.
No, not really. Sometimes I will.
Yeah.
There's some math involved in grounding a little bit.
Absolutely. Not what I believe to be university level math, but you might be working with different equations than I'm working with.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what was it clear to you? Like, hey, I'm gonna wrap this thing up, and I'm gonna be out there with Dustin, and we're
Yeah,
gonna
that was the plan for sure.
Yeah.
He's out there.
He took
Planted
over
the seeds, and then I just piggybacked on.
Sam took over the Pennsylvania operation that I had built up while I was out there, and then when I moved away, we just worked together until he got his degree, and we were just fucking waiting for him to get out there, and then he came out. And we got our other buddy from college, Jacob, to come out too. He was our original designer that did all the old WWF heads that we took away specific characteristics and it just said Real Deal Resin. That was our third partner, Jacob, and he was with us for the first year or so, and he was a beast, dude. He wasn't just designing; he would literally be on the farm with us. I got a letter from the county one year that I was going to get raided, or I had to cut all my plants down. This was my first spot I was running. I just had a little greenhouse in the back, and so they're trying to tell me they had to come out and watch me cut all my plants, and I was like, this is bullshit. They're always just trying to push away your rights until you speak up for yourself. So I called them and I was like, hey, why do you have to come out and cut my plants? And they said, you have too many, you can't grow where you're at. And I said, okay, well, why do we have to cut them down? Can't I give them to somebody who has a medical card, or can't I give them to a cancer patient? And they couldn't say no, because it was totally legal to give your plants away to somebody else that did have a medical card for a higher plant count. So literally in one day we went out and got a 25-foot U-Haul, and all these plants were big plants in 45-gal pots. And we literally had to pull them all out of the greenhouse, drug them up the ramp into this U-Haul, filled the U-Haul, and I luckily had a second spot already that year, so we moved them all to a different farm and drug them all the way down into this 100-foot hoop I had just started renting. But my buddy Jacob, who was the designer, who was literally doing all the graphics, all the website, he was there busting his ass, sweating with us, pulling all these fucking pots, because it was literally just the three of us. That was the whole fucking team. And we've always been that small. Jacob ended up leaving in the second or third year to go pursue a different job in Pittsburgh. That's kind of where we're all from. But he still works with us, handling the website and designs and everything. He does a bunch of designs for an alcohol and cider company now, so he's killing it. But dude, that guy was an MVP when he was out here, because like you said, it might have appeared like we were a big company because our followers blew up quick, but we've always been 2 to 3 people, and then occasionally I get the workers that will come in to help us supplement, But we've never been a big team that had any type of salary of people would get so frustrated with us when we couldn't sell them stuff back in the beginning because we were so small batch, and they thought we were just being dicks, but literally it was because there was 2 of us, and if we were gonna pull tarps and water our plants and then wash and swish, we literally didn't have time to meet people or enough to get it around,
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yo, so I just have to go back. So the fact that Sam has a math degree makes this so much more interesting and funny. It's just a next level than meme. I didn't realize the levels that it has to it. We'll talk about the statement on it, but the fact that it's fucking Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting with his fucking math geniusness, I love it.
Some of our stuff does have really deep hidden meanings that Easter eggs that I hope some people put the dots together for, but it goes over a lot of people's heads. That I honestly didn't mean to have anything to do with Sam. That was just about people being dicks and saying, they're like, why is your name Real Deal Resin if you're selling rosin? Don't you think that's pretty misconceiving? And it's just fuck. I never thought it was, but I guess if you're totally unfamiliar with the product and who we are, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Bro, trichromes are called resin heads.
Yeah.
Tomato, tomato, I guess.
Tomato. So when did resin become the focus? Were you guys heading out to California with the understanding that we're trichome farmers and we want to isolate glands and smoke the best resin that we possibly can, or were you still blasting smoking solvents and running BHO? When did that epiphany?
Our first run was all BHO.
Big live resin boys.
Yeah. We had a homie that made diamonds.
Because that's what we were smoking. The whole project has always been, we make what we smoke from day one. Mm-hmm. So when we were smoking diamonds, we fresh froze. From day one, we were fresh freezing though. We never dried anything.
Yeah.
It's always been fresh frozen. My first crop I gave to Frosty. I used to like work with them when they were doing the BHO thing years ago. Like the community is so small. It's funny because I used to like be a rep for him. And then I started working with West Coast Alchemy. Just an awesome guy. I met him at a hemp con like 5 years ago when I was buying trim run from him. And then I would let him make our live resin. And then it's just so full circle now because we're all making hash. But me and Sam switched to the hash when we started smoking hash. So as soon as we started smoking solventless, our garden was already planted for live resin. So whatever strains would yield, we washed. And then whatever just wouldn't yield, we still had to do BHO that year.
And who made that switch for you? Like who showed you solventless? Was it soil grown and seeing a video from Phil with the hair straightener? Like when did you guys get turned on? Who turned you on to it?
Autie and third gen.
Yeah.
Straight up. That's fucking awesome.
We got to try Pink Lemonade the year it won the cup before it was hype at all, before people knew about it, because he was buddies with my buddy and we were all in the same circle in NorCal. And I literally knew it was going to win. Like I told him it was going to win. The shit was fucking crazy. Like it just blew our minds. And that was 6-star melt. Everybody thinks we hate melt, but like melt isn't incredible, you know, but we just prefer to squish it. But that stuff really opened up my eyes. That, and honestly, there's this Amnesia Haze by Pua Extracts that freaking Harrison brought over. It's so funny, dude, because like we have all these companies now, but we were all sitting at the same table just ripping dabs as homies years ago before we had any of these entities. And it was like me, Autie Hash, NorCal Organics, Sam, so it was both Real Deal Resin, True Hash Co., which was DAC. We were literally, before any of those were a company, Thomas had his, so Autie had his company. We were all just friends ripping dabs, sitting around tables and talking about what we loved. And then it all spurred companies that are all legit and rec now. Like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
That's the realness, man. That's the realness. So I want to ask you a question, and this relates to kind of Jameson about just dabbing evolution. Do you think it's almost like a rite to passage going through the BHO days of, in your case, the making, and then, as you said, now you're all making hashish. I feel like it's almost a different appreciation for people that have gone through that route. And to Jameson's, classic point, people that dab, he feels like need to go through that as well. Dabbing, slabs and then dabbing live resin.
Yeah, you should be able to try everything.
Yeah, but would you want somebody's first experience to be Real Deal Resin? Or do you feel as though there's kind of like, and I love what Brian says, because I kind of like to ask this to everybody, do you feel like there's a rite of passage to, you have so much more appreciation for a product if you know where it could be or came from to where it is now? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it definitely builds appreciation, because like if you smoke shit and then you get to try a product that's really high quality, you'll probably realize like, damn, this is like, it's art more than just work, Everybody knows work, work slabs, But like when you get head stash, that's art to me, because that's an expression of the grower and the extractor, their time, their efforts, keeping it as pristine as they can. Like it's literally an artistic experience. But I wouldn't necessarily say that people need to work their way up. I think you're totally good to just start.
Whatever you can afford.
Yeah, whatever. Like we were just smoking live resin because we were in Pennsylvania. Like we were smoking work slabs, like trim run, And then once we got live resin, that was good. We would buy that. And once we had availability to hash, that was good. We'd buy that.
As soon as I tried hash, I knew I was gonna smoke that the rest of my life until I found something better.
What was the strain that did that?
Better. What was that?
He's asking if you remember the dab. Like for me, it was like Purple Drank Breath.
Probably the Skittles slab.
Skittles, yeah, dude. It was Skittles fucking rosin from third gen.
The big dog.
I've got
big slabs of it. You would get.
I'd go into the dispensary and just buy slabs.
That's
as much as they'd sell me.
I want to talk a little bit about a comment you made on the Hashishin, where you referenced the glass community and how that really helped you grow your network here in California when you didn't really know a lot of people when you first moved out here, and the connection that the two communities, the cannabis community and the glass community, have. Can you talk a little bit about your experience in the early days of the Humboldt glass scene?
Yeah, well, Sam got me into it in Pennsylvania, and then I carried over into like I get obsessed with things, so I got obsessed with glass. So once Sam got me into it, I got obsessed with like all the best glass makers and the Everdream artists specifically, like Joe P, WJC, um, Storm and Norm, Nate, just a bunch of beasts. So we go out to those shows. We went to Heaters. Me and Sam went together, and we scooped a couple pieces of Joe P. Nate Myers from there, and a Joe P. Darby TP. And I got to meet a bunch of cool people, and some of them were from like similar areas where I was living in NorCal. And it ended up being a lifesaver, honestly, because once I was out here by myself, like completely by myself, all my friends were still in Pennsylvania. Yeah, like it was kind of lonely for a minute because I went from like being in college, like to where I could walk over and be with like 8 friends all at once, to literally just living in Ukiah, which is like a small ass town where I didn't know anybody. So like all I knew literally was my plug, like my landlord and my plug, and then my buddies lived an hour south, and they had a bunch of glass. So I'd literally drive down there almost every day, every other day, just to hang out with them, and we would just rip dabs. And that was that table I was talking about, where it would be like me, NorCal, Organics, it'd be Auti, it'd be True Hash Co., West Coast Alchemy would come through, Frosty Nugman. Like we were all in the same circle, and so the glass is pretty much what kept me sane while I was out here by myself until Sam's ass got out here.
Do you
It's
still?
funny because I was gonna say it's funny because like cannabis, we always say like pass the joint, like don't bogart that shit, and it's like always in the past it's been like let's all get into a group and like smoke, and I really feel like the dab community and glass has brought that back, but to like so much of a more professional level because it's like, yeah, man, let's sesh, bring out like your nicest piece, bring out your nice car, right? Like, and some of them worth more than a nice car. And like the people that you're referring to too, like I remember seeing pieces from Storm and Norman. What, RJ, 7, 8 years ago is when our boy had them and was repping them, and like
Long time.
they
Yeah, like
were
2014.
they were well received, but the level of respect like definitely wasn't there. And it's amazing to hear those names because now they're known as legends in glass and really influential. But going back to that time, they were really looked at as just, I don't know.
Well, it depends who. Like
Yeah,
Norm
Norm was
was a bit
new.
of a Norm was a bit of a new
Because he was blowing
popped.
for like 2 or 3 years and blew up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
was like the
popped.
phenom.
He popped hard. He popped hard. Him and Patrick
Wage
Perpsker, they
protege. He
popped
was the
they popped.
protege.
Yeah, they popped hard. So like, and they've been killing it. You know what I mean?
And once you actually rip their pieces, you see why. Like there is hype behind it,
Yeah,
but then once you actually rip their piece, you're like, holy shit! Like there is a
yeah,
difference between this and like the fucking other recyclers.
I
yeah.
want an orb.
But
I want one of his orbs.
they're super
Yeah, I have
sick.
an orb, and honestly, like it creates a different hash experience than any other rigs.
Yeah, it's super tight. It's
I think
literally
he also like designed that, with hash in mind too, which is
Exactly, it's crazy.
so like it's just he's one of the few that kind of like took that kind of mindset to it. You know what I mean? The Everdream guys are the forward thinkers. You know what I mean? Like Nate, like that guy's been so far ahead of the game forever. Like his space tech was ahead of the game 10 years ago, and people still have a hard time replicating it. You know what I mean?
I fuck
Like
with Nate.
Bush,
He's an OG.
WJC, like all these dudes, Elbow, like you know what I mean? They're just killers,
Yeah,
killers.
the Joe P like Honey Tech and Bumblebee and yeah, like next level stuff. But it's amazing because now you look back, and RJ and I talk about this because RJ's been collecting forever, and like he used to tell me about that, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And now like I have a different appreciation for glass now that I've gotten so much more into hash. Like I've always been a smoker. I've always been into whatever I could smoke, and yeah, grabbing slabs from RJ back in the day. But like now it's such, as you said, hitting a piece, and I think Jameson, you said this with some of your newer pieces. Like depending on what you're hitting, whether it's from the Indux or whether you're hitting a slurper or a CN slurper or a Grail, it's such a different experience. And like getting some of those premium pieces really like makes it.
Yeah, I totally see. And that's what our whole brand has been built around too, is the experience. Like it's a lot of people overlook the experience you're creating, and people just think they're selling products, but that shouldn't be what you're trying to do. It's all about the experience. And I feel like Norm is the one that, like, man, he figured it out. Because, like you said, his intention was set towards a hash smoking apparatus. And, like, man, it's hard. Like, when you look at it, you wouldn't think it would just be anything crazy. But once you actually smoke it, it does create, like, a more intrinsic, joyful experience for me. Maybe it's just, like, sentimental value, but they're on to something, those wolves.
But it's the ritual aspect too, right? Like we have these pieces and we value them so highly. They are like our grails, you know what I mean? Like we chase these things down. We want what we want. We pay crazy money for them. You know what I mean? They are inherently our vessel, our transportation for the journey, right?
But
So
there's a quote. There's like, and I know you know this, and I don't have to say this, but for people listening who think that it's just what RJ is talking about, which it is, there's actually a function that is so much better with these pieces compared to Chinese blown glass that makes that experience so much better. And so for us looking for really high end experiences and willing to go there, we want to be able to have that apparatus that can provide the best experience. Like, and it's everybody's different because everybody hits dabs differently is what I've really learned. So are you guys still collectors? Are you guys still like following the glass scene, or has it lost some of its vigor?
No, I still follow a ton of glass people.
Yeah, I
still buy stuff.
We used to go to a lot of shows. We don't go to as many shows. I guess COVID slowed everything down anyway. But it's been a couple years since I've gone to a show. We used to be like at like every one. But I still definitely support the same artists.
And who's the most recent, or what's the most recent piece that you bought? What artist for each of you?
What was it one? Just the Habs?
Yeah, you just bought a Habs or something?
I got a Habs.
Oh, I fucking love those.
Cool young dude, yeah. They rip.
I just bought 2 Sun number 4s.
His Sun number 4 is like this big, and it's
like a little tiny one, and I just pre-ordered one that's like a I think they're called a siphon, where it like drips.
So
like the Ouroboros, those things are super cool.
So if you're into the Sun number 4s, what do you think about these?
Oh, that's just tight.
I haven't tried them, but I need to order one.
Yo, they just made an announcement. They have their last order because of the Russia and whatever Ukraine shit. Because he gets all of his products from Russia, or she.
Yeah.
Right.
I just bought a half pipe last night. You ever smoke one of those things with a quartz rod?
No.
Dude, it's pretty fucking sweet. It's like a 3-hole bowl, and you put the hash in the bowl, and you heat up a quartz rod, and then you just like feather it on, and it's like the best tasting experience.
It's funny you say feather. I was gonna say ramrod.
I'm gonna have to try that. I got a herb iron that like my buddy told me to pick one of those up, and it's like just an electrical like heating element.
You should try it.
I love how
Dude, it works really good.
It does. Like I love how we're rebirthing all these old techs. Like I was doing that. Like, I was doing that 10 years ago, and then it kind of fell off when we got into dabbing. But all the old school techs are coming back, like the herb iron, the glow rods.
It looks old school, like some Pakistani hash.
Yeah, it's some old shit.
Yo,
it works so fucking
avant-garde.
Good. It tastes amazing.
Avant-garde glass, crazy.
Yo,
like
having the perk within the sidewall and the cups that they have.
The cups are
level.
Sick. So sick.
But I wanted to I've been blessed to be able to spend some time up in the Triangle and get into some really cool remote areas and visit some really cool guys, and it's a completely different world up there. And you guys not only have been up there for a while as transplants, but operated multiple farms. I mean, I don't think people really understand how hard you guys have been hustling these last few years. And so I just kind of wanted you guys to paint a little picture of the sheer remoteness and what it's like managing these farms in far locations away, and sort of what you took on after that first season. Like, I'm sure at some points you bit off more than you can chew. Would that be a safe assumption?
Yeah, we were spread thin for sure, but we never had a spot fail.
No.
Everything worked.
Yeah,
we always believed it would, and we did make it work. But we were spending,
work
like
and
there was
focus,
points
hard
where I
work
was
and
every
focus.
last dollar into a spot,
And so how were you guys growing? Like, can you do for
So it started out when Sam first moved out. I had one spot with a greenhouse in the back, and that's the one that I got the letter from the county, and they said that they were going to rate us if we didn't move them, so we had to fill the U-Haul. But luckily, I already had another spot rented for that year. So that year, we took all those plants to this spot in Willits, and I rented it from this barefooted guy that I met at Burger King with a parrot on his shoulder. No lie, dude. So
wait, pirate or a wook?
he was a wook with a parrot, a couple parrots.
Parrot wolf.
So we rented his spot. And then that same year, I ended up finding another guy on Craigslist. And the guy on Craigslist was totally random, but he happened to be when I called him, he was my fucking neighbor, like in real life. Like he literally lived 2 houses down, but I found him on Craigslist to rent another spot. His other spot was like an hour and a half north of the other one we rented. So that year, we would drive an hour and a half between 2 different spots to take care of them. One was completely off grid. That spot was kind of a bitch. That was our first time ever dealing with that. And then the other spot had power, and the other spot had a 100-foot hoop, and then like a 1,000-square-foot greenhouse, something like that. It was this big square one that was like meant to look just like a shop.
Yeah, it looked like a shop. It didn't look like a greenhouse at all.
It was sick.
It grew bang too.
You guys are in pots in this?
Raised beds.
You're in raised beds. Okay.
Yeah, that was raised beds, and the one was like literally like 100-foot long raised bed, and we like plateaued it because there was like different heights. So when we had to move all those pots, the first round we had just a bunch of 45-gal pots sitting on top of the raised beds because those fucking plants were so root bound already, we couldn't transplant them. Those ones we had to move from the spot. So we drug those all down 100 feet all by hand. Like it was fucking crazy. And we finished that first round out, the summer depths, and then we got to cut those, and then we just dumped all the soil out into the beds they were laying on, amended that, and then we just planted the next round into that. And that was the year that our second round we ran the Skittles that we collabed with Authy on. So that was actually the year that we started Real Deal Resin, and it all started with the collab with Authy Hash, and he ran the Skittles. So our first solventless product ever wasn't even ran by us; it was ran by Authy.
Interesting. How are you guys feeding your soil? Are you using nutrients or
all teas?
No.
Teas.
Yeah, we've been organic even before we were doing the solventless. When we were planning to do live resin, we were still organic. And I can't remember what made us do that. Oh, Dragon with Matches was kind of my mentor. When I moved out here, I would go to events and just like volunteer to like work for him. And I would just do anything I could to get my foot in the door. The first year I was out here by myself, I would just do anything to network. And so he was a big organic grower in Humboldt with big outdoor grows. And he was like a K&F guy, but I couldn't do the whole K&F thing. But we just kept it simple with organic teas.
Teas, yeah. And then we get our soil tested at the beginning of the year, and then just get a list of stuff from the grocery store.
You just amend accordingly. That's awesome, man. That's very cool. So you guys have been organic since you showed up, since you came out there?
My very first round before Sam got here, I was using bottled nutrients because I had no clue what was going on. Everybody was doing it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I use this shit called
Mother of all bloom.
Moab, Mother of all bloom, dude. This shit made my stuff blow up. It was fucking crazy, man. Like salt growers have no clue how easy they have it. Like all they gotta do is just a couple tablespoons of this and their shit just blows up. When I quit growing organic, my landlord was like kind of like a partner in the spot I was renting. And when my numbers like fell off because clearly the organic wasn't gonna hit the same as like crazy synthetics, he thought I was like a shitty grower, but I was just growing organic.
Yeah. Have you guys, while cultivating, have you noticed a trade-off between yield and resin yield as far as like a non-correlation where at some points you're getting larger yield but less resin in certain methodologies when you're washing material?
What do you think? I think the organic always turns out better, but I don't know if it affects the yield.
No, it doesn't affect the yield.
It will affect the yield of the flour weight if you're using PGRs and shit and make them just buff up. But
I was just going to say, do you think it affects more so like
the quality?
Biomass?
Yeah, it's a little meltier, in my opinion. Organic is. as compared to salts.
You think it has any effect
I would
on
even
terp?
agree. I'd even agree with that from a solvent standpoint. Like even dealing with organic resin, like there's something more to it. It's got a way
Yeah.
different melt factor,
It's
100%.
definitely a little meltier. It's probably just because it's more terps, I would think. But I've seen some really good grown salt shit. So.
Yeah, we have.
So you
Now, are
guys
you doing?
think, or sorry,
I'm
go ahead,
kidding.
Brian.
Are you doing hoop houses, full green sealed greenhouse, outdoor combos,
Just like
experimenting with everything?
hoopies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this past year was all hoop houses and full term.
Yeah.
But in the past, we've had sealed greenhouses, like our R&D location where we just do pheno hunts is just sealed greenhouses and full term. I think nothing makes better.
Full term's the best resin. in my
Yeah,
opinion.
best yield and best quality.
Yeah. Outdoor full term resins.
Is that a flavor perspective or a medic?
Everything about
Everything.
Everything. Yeah.
it. Trumps on all levels.
So I want to talk about pheno hunting a little bit. I know you guys do a lot of it, and I know you guys could probably make a lot more money if you did less of it. What I wanted to ask is that how confident after a single showing in a sealed greenhouse or a hoop are you that is the one? And the question I'm leading into is, I think it's probably a lot more intricate than that, and I think a lot of people assume that a pheno hunt is 3 months and then you're pretty much good to go. And I want you, if you could take us through what a pheno hunt looks like for you guys, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think it takes 2 years to scale anything that you find. Two full years after we find something, I can't even really talk about it because
You have to run
I
it
can't
again.
hype it up.
You have to run it
Yeah,
twice.
so take us through that whole. Why does it take 2 years? I know, like, if I didn't know anything, why does it take 2 years?
Well, the first round you're just going to have one plant, so that's going to be a very small serving, and so you're going to have a small sample size. But if it does well, you know it's probably going to be a hitter. You could run into circumstances where you run it one time and it doesn't do good, but it might be a hitter plant. It just didn't thrive under the conditions you had it, so that sucks. You could throw away winners. But if anything does good, you know it could probably just do better. So once you find it, you got to run it usually a second round just to make sure that it's going to do the same thing. So maybe if you ran it at full term, now check it for a spring run to see how much worse it's going to do, because usually spring runs don't yield as good as full term. So make sure it'll still do good in the spring. And then once you can propagate the moms and have them amped up enough to actually go to scale, that's when you could go in like second term of the second year or going into the beginning of the second year. You could have enough in numbers and testing to make sure that you want to go a whole hoop or a couple hoops with it, But yeah, you just want to make sure that you don't scale it up too fast to the point where you didn't get a good test on it. And you can't really rush Mother Nature. Some shit just veges so slow. Some stuff is, like the best terps don't even want to grow, like Skittles and stuff. Like it doesn't want to be alive. It doesn't want to be alive. So like the terps are like unicorn terps, but it's just like, it's a bitch to keep them propagated and to deal with it. And it's like a lot of things in life, like, it reminds me of like that DMX meme where he's that growing orchids. Like, it's just amazing how like some of the most beautiful things, like they just require the most delicate care and attention, and that's really what they need.
Yo, I used to collect orchids, and I think I used to have about 150. And the price I paid for some of these orchids for like little cuttings that like were rooted and stuff, and like it's 4 to 8 years before you might see inflorescence, which is where the flower will come up. And it's like,
That's crazy.
and you need to do everything right. And like, yeah, it's so delicate. And like, yo, so just to put this out there, when you buy an orchid or when you get an orchid and it says to put an ice cube in it, please don't put an ice cube in your fucking orchid. And the most common thing to do to kill an orchid is to love it to death and take care of it to death. And I think cannabis may be the same thing. Like, let it, especially orchids, let them dry out, let them do their thing, let them go from super saturated to, in an orchid case, super dry, and watch the plant and don't do stupid shit that, why would you put anything icy on a tropical plant? Why would you put ice on top of like a cannabis plant, right? Like that just makes no sense. When you get like up here, when we get ice on our plant, it's like Oh, we're fucked. Like you left it for too long because
Yeah,
we've gotten to. Anyways,
they don't
sorry.
like
It was a perfect time to like when you talk about orchids and you talk about how delicate.
Sam, when you see something do well outside, how confidently are you that that will do well in a depth? Do you ever find that there's those special
50-50 shot.
interesting?
Honestly, we've had stuff do awesome outside, and the next year it did terrible in the first round depths.
And what does that ratio look like from outdoors to indoors or depth to indoors? Have you had a lot of experience with that?
I haven't had too much experience with indoor.
We run our buddy Sog Armies indoor. That's pretty much the most experience we get. And we also, so like he has the Blue Mosa and we run it outdoors too.
Yeah.
And it does hit pretty similarly. It hits like 5% indoors and we can get like 5.2, 5.4 outside. But I don't think we've ever hit like 6 or anything crazy, have we?
The blue might push 6 for outs.
So
But
Now,
it's
when
right around
you're
that
saying
5.
5 and 6, are you saying that full spec, or are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I want to ask about the I want to ask about hash yields. I want to talk, you've been cultivating, selecting, and looking at varietals that exclusively to do well in the wash bin for quite some time, and even more so now. We're seeing more and more breeders coming in, selecting and breeding seed lines specifically for solventless. Do you feel there's a lot of more the plant has to give as far as yields on solventless, or do you think that we're tapped out at say a GMO 7 to 8% yield off the plate?
The highest we've ever got was like an 8.3 with a Wilson cross.
4 spins too.
That's crazy.
And
So
the dude didn't know what the Wilson cross was, so we just called it Hello Wilson because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, it was hella shit crossed to Wilson.
is that do you think that that's the plant maxing itself out, Sam?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I don't know because when we grew that plant in depths, it probably only did like 3 to 4%.
And that was at a different region, so it was originally grown in Santa Barbara. It was one plant in a dude's backyard. And it hit 8.3%, so that shows how much like the microclimates probably play a role in the genetics too. I underestimated that part, especially like moving a cut and expecting it to hit a certain percentage and then just being completely cut in half.
Yeah.
So that's
what about harvest technique?
That's huge for sure.
Huge.
Absolutely huge.
Do you want to talk about your technique or what they did? Did they harvest that plant, or did you harvest it? And again, do you want to talk about your technique?
We just have this regular SOP that anybody else would, but he didn't really tell me how he harvested his. They just came in like a bunch of like half gal bags. Usually people use full turkey bags, so his were in like smaller bags. And again, he only had probably 6 plants in his backyard, so he probably delicately trimmed all that stuff up. So if there was like extra leaf that would have dragged his percentage down, he definitely probably got rid of it. But it wasn't anything that we looked at. It's not like we didn't look at the frozen material and be like, wow, this is going to be crazy. It just came out of nowhere. Like I was looking at it when I was going to squish it because he washes everything and I squish. And I saw how much it was and I was like, wait, there was one plant of this? And I had to double check the numbers and it was the highest yield we ever hit.
But you don't think that a 10%er, a true 10%er exists? Like you don't
I've
think
heard
that
people hit it.
Yeah,
we
I've heard that.
we gotta shout out G-Coin 710 because he's the one that grew that plant in Santa Barbara that hit that 8.3% Hello Wilson. But I'm sure people could do crazy shit.
I've heard of people hitting like 12% on some shit. Some Wilson crosses. They said.
That's wild.
Is that straight fresh though, or is there like a small dry? Is it drying out on the stalk of the plant? Like, what's the water activity?
Fresh frozen.
Well, like fresh frozen, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, how much water content is in that plant for it to hit that number?
Did they not water it
Right,
for like
that's
2
true.
weeks?
Yeah, like
You know what I mean?
4 days.
That's my question. I love everyone throwing out these numbers.
Yeah.
But it's like, can we all just have one basis of like standardization? Like it's at like this water activity, this percent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
So you guys mentioned Z-Terps and how big a fan you guys are of Skittles. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And like, you said something really interesting that plant doesn't want to live. And I've seen more poor expressions of Skittles than I have seen good. And yeah, can you guys just talk about like what draws you towards it and a little bit more about the plant for those who haven't cultivated it?
It just tastes so good. You ever tasted it?
I have, but I've tasted a lot of things that were called Skittles that didn't taste like it before I finally tasted it. It was a
I've
bit of
yet
a
to have one that's blown me away,
Yeah.
or that's like made me say, "Oh, whoa, that's Skittles." I've
Yeah.
not
Never
had
had
one.
the true,
You haven't
never had the
had
true
Skittles.
Skittles.
We live in like the land
Yeah,
of
we live in
Skittles.
land of Z, dude.
So,
we live
like,
in Mendo.
Our first experience was the realest deal. And then I got a crazy cut of it just through some crazy circumstance. I was just buying other shit, and the cut we got was so beautiful, and we ended up losing it. But man, we've had batches of our own Z, and then I've tried batches from third gen. I've tried batches from Auti, and
It all tastes different.
it is, yeah, there is usually different hues to it, but it's all just like beautiful, like, okay, that's what I want to fucking smoke forever.
Yeah.
And does it get you? Is it strong? Like, is it a medical strain?
Yeah,
Yes.
it would get you so stoned.
So stoned.
That's dope. That's dope. I've yeah, and it's not a pretty plant.
It's some of the wettest resin that you'll see.
Yeah, like sometimes when you squish it, the terps just want to leak into the parchment paper before you can even collect it.
Oh, so your room's got to be super
So
cold.
so much terps.
That's
Right,
awesome.
right into the glass jar.
Yes.
So are you guys working with a lot of Skittles crosses?
We have a few.
We have a ZS1.
We definitely have a couple in the.
Like our Skittles right now is our own ZS1 that we grew a couple years ago from Humboldt CSI.
Yeah,
We got
killer.
rainbow belts. We got some Skittles.
Oh, dope.
We got some key lime pie. That's like Skittles. You ever had key lime pie?
I have had key lime pie.
It's like Skittles. Skittles like.
I'm looking for sours, honestly, this year. I want all gas and sour.
Yes, bring back the sours, please.
That's all I want.
I
So I
miss the
wanted to,
sours.
just before we get off pheno hunting, I wanted to ask you guys about your observations for selecting washers. Other than examining the glands laid in flower, have you noticed anything in late veg or early flower that you've been able to correlate with something that does well in the wash bin?
If you can get a little bit on your fingers and press it, and you see some stringers, that usually does good. 9 times out of 10.
Or like sandy consistency is the main thing I look for. If it's wet, I don't even.
Yeah.
If it's wet on my fingers, I don't even smell it.
Yeah.
Now I'll smell it, but I know it's not going to do anything. Even if it's
It's
nice.
not even worthwhile.
The heads are just bursting on your hand. They're not going to be able to collect.
So-
So first we go for the feel, and then we go for the smell.
So when you got your first experience with solventless at third gen, was that hash or was that rosin?
It was rosin.
Very cool.
Slabs of rosin.
Slabs of rosin.
Slabs of Skittles rosin. It was so beautiful.
And so did you immediately
I
go
can see it. I can still see it today.
Yeah, me too.
I
I'm
can literally see you visualizing it, Sam. Like
I was
the
holding
look
it
in your
up in the
face.
sun, just
I
beautiful
can. I
sun.
can still see it.
I'd go in and buy it, and then buy as much as I could the next day, and then my friends would see I had it and tell me to go buy more.
So what for you guys in the rec market, what's the absolute minimum yield that you guys need on something for it to make sense?
Like it has to hit like 4 to 5%, like 5% really if you want to make profit. It's crazy. It sucks. So like if you have anything that has a super exotic terp, it's tough to just like we just ran a bunch of stuff for Tar Heel, and it's just amazing terpene profiles, but the yield is just not there at all to make it sustainable. Like if he wanted to plant a bunch of hoops of that and run, he wouldn't probably be able to pay for like the overhead of the farm just because they don't yield enough. It sucks.
Yeah. No, I mean that's sometimes it's got to make sense. So
Amazing turps, though.
Jameson, can we talk a little bit about technique, hand wash versus machine, and then
Yeah.
RJ, you can ask your question.
Yeah, absolutely. We want like how what's your SOPs in the washroom? Are you guys running paddles or are you running machines?
We have an Osprey.
Okay.
From Bug
Yeah. And how you guys like that?
I use Bubble Magics too.
Okay, true.
For small washes, if we have to do an R&D test wash.
And when did you start using like the Osprey? Like, did you start out using the small machines, like the
been a
bubble?
Bubble Magic dude. I hand washed for a little bit in the beginning, but then
We started out hand washing for like 7 or 8 months.
for a while I hand washed, but I could do a lot more with the Bubble Magics and a lot more each day. So I started using those, and they work good. Honestly, they work really good. Just keep them clean. They're easy to clean.
And as someone who's smokes their own hash, and have you been able to see a big difference between the machine?
No.
No.
We wouldn't have switched if we thought.
I got better yields with the machines.
Better yields and same quality, better quality?
Same quality.
That answers my question.
But we're also switching.
No, your next
so
question.
If we needed melt, I don't know if you actually needed melt to release, because we know we're switching everything. So that's not a big
That's fair.
concern to us.
That's
we know where
fair.
it's going.
That's fair. Because there's definitely, as Brian is alluding to, the debate right now versus top agitation versus bottom agitation. But I mean, you guys kind of just said it all. Like you just rock the bottom, and it seems to do everything you need it to.
Is there a machine that does top?
Yes.
Yeah, there's that. I'm not sure what it's called, but I've seen it. It's like a big flour mixer.
Yeah.
And it has this big arm that goes in, and it's like paddles in.
I think it's the Axis.
The Axis, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There's pretty neat. I'd like to use it. I'd like to try it. I'd try it, I'd try anything.
Send this man a sample. Send him a machine.
Yeah, come on.
Sponsorship.
Let me see it.
2-month rental, at least.
I want to talk about fresh press versus cured rosin and your experiences with it. And you had a really interesting quote. I don't know which one of you said it on the Hashishin, but you like to see that you like to deliver to your customer that really clear fresh press to denote quality the same way a white ash on a joint denotes quality. Is that something that you still feel to this day? Like, are you guys fresh press or death kind of guys?
I don't know how to see this camera.
Some stuff's better for cold cured, some stuff's better for fresh press.
And
show it again.
Yeah, show it again. Show that fresh press. And so let me ask you this: what's the ratio of cold cure to fresh press?
Down.
There it is. Yeah. Because in my experience, I find that the plant truly expresses itself more often than not better in a cold cure than a fresh press. And I know people very much disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
No, we agree.
And my thing is,
we definitely agree.
Okay.
I think
there's this few that shine in fresh press.
There's just a stigma because people want to think that something is degraded if they're not the ones whipping it up or something like that. I feel like it's like a stigma in the consumer that thinks, like some people just think it's not as fresh if it's been whipped already. But I feel like there's no fresh press, honestly, that comes out as hard as a profile of a cold cure is. It's just actively present, And like I would liken it to like how distilleries and like bourbon and shit is cured in barrels, and how it totally brings it to a new level. Like I'm trying to think about a way to have like fruit soaked barrels or something and be able to take rosin and actually do a cure like bourbon or something would be, without having it be oxidized or dried out, but just take on the essence of something.
Like keep it under pressure, hold it under pressure and like some type of gas maybe or something.
I think the big thing for me is, and Jameson, we've talked about this, never having the opportunity of trying.
The difference.
Because for me, and as you said, it hits harder. But like we had an OMG or GMO, whatever, fresh press versus cured, And when Jameson was over here in Toronto, we were hitting it, and it's like the fresh press had like this floral element to GMO that I've never experienced. And then, you know, having then the cold cure where it like smacks you that classic GMO, it's like as Jameson says, like dirty feet terps that like we all love, was amazing. But it was just nice to have the experience of both.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see that. I do like having fresh press. Like for us, like it's easy to keep some for ourselves. The biggest reason why we do cold cure is because once it leaves our hand and goes to a third party distribution or a retailer, even if we give specific instructions on how it should be handled, a lot of times in the industry in California right now, things can get mishandled, and then it can go as a misrepresentation to our product and to our brand. And so that's why we do cold cures, because we already get it to a place that's more shelf stable. So we're just trying to avoid, because if you do fresh press and then it gets left out at intake or someplace for like 45 minutes in a hot room and then it just butters up, so then it's a dry butter that hasn't been whipped, that's shittier presentation than what we'd like to present, you know? So that's just one of the hurdles that we deal with. You know, it was a lot easier in the former market to be able to offer fresh press too to people. Like if it was easier, for sure. But until we become more self-reliant on just distribution and retail, then we just try to protect the product.
That's a valid point. It makes a lot of sense. I think not only from a business standpoint, but from a consumer standpoint. You know, you don't want to be eating rotten fresh mozzarella,
Yeah.
and that's why we don't get a lot of the time the buffalo mozzarella around here. You know what I mean, RJ knows what I'm saying.
So I want to talk about resin color for a minute and ask you guys your thoughts on, you know, when washing individual phenos. I'm sure you've experienced it just as we all have. You can see a dramatic difference in color once that resin or rosin has cured off the press. What do you think is happening there? Like, what is it, terpenes, or is it something else that's affecting that color, or what do you guys attribute that to?
I think it is terpenes because, like, obviously when you cold cure, the terpenes rise to the top and it creates a dark viscous layer, and everything else becomes a whiter butter until you coagulate it, and then it all retains a mixed up shade. When we've had stuff that we've already whipped and then left it like in my fridge for like a couple months, like just head stash jars, I'll definitely notice a layer, especially like on Skittles, on the top get darker, but then as soon as I whip it up, it all gets lighter again. So it's like the terps are rising again. As far as like the clarity from fresh press, I don't know if there wouldn't really be any chlorophyll left in the concentrate, would there, to be able to change? No.
I don't know.
I think it would just be the resin glands maturing.
Not unless you're using a real shitty bag.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you've got real shitty hash.
Well, it's not even glands maturing at that point because you've removed the sheath of the gland. So you're just dealing with, you know, the, secondary metabolites or whatever that is left that make up the constituents of the rosin. So it's not like a curing inside like a shell. It's something else going on.
I think it's probably just the oxidation.
Yeah, it's oxidized.
And then some things oxidize and some things don't, because like it's not even over time. Like I've had two phenos of the same plant that, you know, one goes much darker than the other. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to talk about that I like to bring up with hash makers.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
You guys are really vocal proponents of rosin over melt, and this is something that we as an industry like to talk about and debate just forever. And you know, you've memed it and made jokes about it, and I just, you know, from your standpoint, why do you guys prefer rosin over melt for people listening?
And come on, guys, when are you going to release melt?
I like the taste and the ease of cleanup. I honestly like the high. Like I rip more dabs like a lot throughout the day. So like I honestly probably get stoned more off of melt. So it probably wouldn't be as productive for me if I was ripping as many dabs of that. And it doesn't have as travel. It's not as travel ready as rosin, and that brings us back to especially like when we're determining what we're going to release. It's hard to release melt and worry about it greasing up before it gets to a consumer. Like that would be huge. And the aspects of like achieving batch sizes that even make the overhead of like all the taxation and testing worth it, you have to have an ample amount of full melt. So we'd have to run huge batches to be able to pull all just full melt from the top and then release the rosin as the additional. So everything is just easier to include our melt into our product that we release.
100%.
Yeah. I definitely don't like smoking melt out of a banger. It sucks. This cleanup's terrible.
Yeah, I don't smoke any melt at all.
The only melt I like to smoke is out of that half pipe I just got. I'm telling you,
Interesting.
it smokes really good.
Well, I think
There's
that speaks to the brand. It's not that you can't make melt. It's two things. One, you smoke what you make because you like what you make. So make whatever the fuck you want because that's what you want to smoke. And if that's rosin for you, then great. And then the second thing is, and I think that's an important point, and for somebody that has like an education degree and a math degree, well, I guess the math degree makes sense. It's really like the business standpoint and looking at the numbers. So whether we're talking about math or not, or just looking at what the obvious points are. If you want to like make the business on just melt, that's going to be real damn difficult unless you've got some sort of a unicorn plant.
Starburst OG.
There are certain plants like our Lemonhead Z. It dumps almost all first pull full melt. So there are certain strains that you like, and then like the third through fourth wash will just be a little bit, but like everything's in the first pull. So there are strains that are like that, but yeah, I just prefer to squish everything, honestly.
So you guys recently you talked a little bit about it. You did a collab with I think it was Tar Heel Farms, and you dropped the Jelly Roll, which is a blend of his pink lemonade, his melon, and then his gargoyle melonberry. I wanted to ask you guys what you thought about resin mixing. Is this something that we're going to see more of in the industry and more of from you guys, or does it have its certain place? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, everybody's doing it. Everybody did it at the Ego Clash. Everybody is doing it for the market. Like I love it because pheno hunting is a bitch. If you're familiar with the process at all, like you can have whole hoops of like losers. Unfortunately, if you pick the wrong genetics, like if you pick solid genetics, you can have a pretty reliable turnout, but you still might not find the unicorn terps that you're looking for. So if you can just take these cuts that already have the exact terps identified that you want and mix them to blend the exact terps that you'd like to find in a pheno hunt, it adverts a lot of the journey and a lot of the overhead. And if you have strains with maybe a little bit of an excess amount of certain strains, you can blend to create new SKUs because everybody likes variety. Variety is the spice of life. So just to be able to offer different terp pairings, I think everybody likes. We do it ourselves. We've been doing it forever, just having jars of head stash and blending some together,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in an ideal world, if you had enough of all your inputs, would you prefer to wash them separately and then blend after? Or would you say, I wouldn't mind 6 to 1/2 dozen the other?
We do both, actually. So we'll a lot of times just do batches washed all together, and then it's all a blended batch in the melt, and then it just gets squished as a blended batch. And then sometimes we'll do batches where we wash them separately, see how they squish and cure, and then just blend the batches with a rosin ratio that will create notice for the homies. Yeah, that's another thing too I forgot to mention. The fucking price point of melt, it's the creme de la creme, and it's not for the average consumer. Like a lot of people think that everybody should just afford everything, but just like I can't afford a Ferrari even though I really want to fucking drive one really fast, like it might be out of your budget. So if you're reliant on charging like $100, $120 for full melt, you might not even be able to sell it, or it might not hit the velocity that you would if you just kept it as rosin at a lower digit, and included a fuller spec ratio.
Absolutely. So RJ touched on it a little bit, and I just wanted to go back to it about hash yields. Like when you're told numbers by other farmers or makers, how much confidence do you have in those numbers? Because with the variability in water activity, and if he was growing in rock wool versus if he was growing in a living soil bed, in the rock wool bed, he might have been able to, hold off for 3 days on watering or not fed a plant for even longer before that, versus a living soil bed, has to maintain a moisture level for other things going on in it, and those plants got harvested. Do you feel like you're getting accurate information from one hash maker to another when you hear yields on different cultivars?
Hash makers, I believe, but like nurseries or like old school growers that aren't familiar with like the hash that we're pulling, I don't believe any single number they ever tell at all. I need a test wash of anything. I don't believe any of the numbers that especially people selling cuts, because everybody this year is shopping for hash varietals. And so everyone's gonna say, yeah, I got shit that dumps. Like I heard it last year about shit I knew wouldn't dump, and they were like, yeah, this one dumps. No, it doesn't. Like outrageous.
You want to call
False
any
advertising.
call any cuts out right now that are falsely advertised?
How does that thing start? You just sit there?
Yeah. I think it's bullshit when people say they're selling seeds that are gonna dump now when like they don't even have solidified hash genetics, or what all they did was find one male and then go out and buy a bunch of cuts that are hashers, and then they claim that they're like a hash breeder now. Like anybody could do that. We could keep one male from last year and pollen and dump everything.
What do you think about these guys putting out untested polyhybrids? Like, do you, as a guy who looks through a lot of gear, is that something you don't mind, or what?
No, I don't mind it at all, but I hate it. Like, I ignore it because I know who to just ignore and never buy from. We have like probably 4 or 5 people we'll buy from, but the ones that like, it's like their first or second year of just pollen chucking a male on stuff, but they just bought a bunch of hashers. Like they didn't care about hash until it became what's hype. And now they bought all the stuff they could get from the dispensary, like the papaya clone, a GMO clone. They'll go buy like a cookies and cream. They'll keep one male and dump it on everything. And now they're releasing a hash line. I hate that. Like I hate if they marketed it as that because they don't know how it's really going to hit yet. I don't care if they sell it. Just call it names and just say this is what I have available. That's America. That's capitalism. That's just your free right to do something. But I think the false advertising would be like labeling something that it isn't.
I mean, I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous, because how many times do you grab those, poly crosses and they're Hermes, and you fucking invested this time and have them mixed in with other varietals in your hoop house, and it just fucks up the whole thing. So to me, I think it's a little bit disingenuous the way that they are represented, but I won't go off on it. I'll let you continue.
Yeah, it's weird because we've also had so we'll have companies that like are supposed to be like more solidified, but I don't necessarily get pissed about Hermes and shit. I think that's kind of just like luck of the draw, honestly, because like I've kind of had it from most companies here or there.
But when 4 out of 5?
Oh no, that's just terrible genetics, and we stick with symbiotic genetics. They're freaking killers. Like you'll get good ratios off of everything. Like you can rely on like a 3% average, which is like good enough to make things work, but then you'll find keepers, like hitters, almost every time. And we like exotic genetics. And we like, honestly, I like Masonic just because we have had good luck with his Wilson crosses. And like some of our beefiest stuff, we have a Dosey Animal Wilson, and we have a Poontang Wilson that were both keeper cuts that we found from Masonic, and we've been fucking with him since way before like he got super hype and shit. But
Wilson dumps.
It dumps, and like honestly, they're like solid growers in NorCal for where our climate is. Like they're just usually big beasts. Like they'll chunk up and then they'll hit solid numbers for you. So we had good luck with his stuff. Who else? This year we're running stuff from Pure Melt, so we're gonna try some of his stuff. We got more Masonic for this year, more symbiotic.
You guys run any T Beazle or like Little Lake Valley?
Diesel,
Yeah, we
ran
did
some
run
of
his
his
stuff last year, but we didn't find any keepers. But we tossed it in super late too, so it didn't get like a full run exposure. We bought more of his seeds to give it like a true, just full run, because we got his stuff in really late.
Some Hella seeds.
Hella
Stuff did
seeds,
good.
yeah, it actually did do good.
His gap crosses.
Max
did
gap
great.
crosses did really nice for us. Like we found a melon soda that was fire, and what was the other one? Something candy.
Strawberry candy.
Strawberry candy was pretty good. Oh,
What's
and,
the terps like on melon soda?
Like a melon soda.
That was
Exactly
probably one of
how
my
it said.
favorite ones from last year, honestly. Like fizzy, melon, like different from papaya notes, because a lot of papaya crosses just end up being like papaya. Like it's honestly different. And it hit good percentage. Like, so last year was our first time one plant running it, so this year will be the time that we can run a little bit more, scale it up, and then see if it's actually going to be worth it. All right, this is a hitter, let's run hoops of it.
I just had a melon soda by Swamp Hash in Michigan, and it was exactly like you said. It was like a fizzy melon. It was incredible. It was really nice. So
It was really good. LSC, like we had some good results from, and Bloom Seed Co. We've been rocking with them for a while too. So we have a bunch of his new stuff for this year too. We ran a bunch of our buddy Rebel Moon Mendo ran their Papaya Power. That was a collab between him. That Papaya Power is from Bloom and who?
that was Sin City.
Yeah. So he had a couple of those that we got to run this year that turned out really nice. They're like a more raw and raunchy papaya profile.
Tell me about what you guys have in the market. Tell me about the Blue Mosa.
The Blue Mosa we're actually about to drop in like 2 weeks.
Okay, dope. Yeah, tell me.
We have a big collab coming out with Sog Army. I love the Blue Mosa, dude. That's an accidental find by Sog. I think something hermied in his room, and it hit like, what did it hit?
Blue cookies, and
What up,
most it was the cross.
Yeah, that was the cross, and then he just kept the seeds in his room because it was an accident. And then he ran those and found like 2 keepers, and they're both gangsters. The one is a more flower heavy keeper, and the other one that we like to run is like just the pure like blue kind of Powerade like energy drink terps. And it's definitely different from mimosa, but we call it Blue Mosa just without the E, so people don't think there's any like blue dream in it. But it's so fire, dude, and it hits 5% solid. Like it always dumps. It's such a solid resin. Like it's almost too stable. Like it took like 2.5 weeks to freaking cure. Like it's going on its 3rd week of curing right now. It's about to get whipped up probably tomorrow, and we just got the boxes for it. So that's going to be a collab with Sog Army. They crushed it.
Any other collabs in the works or coming online?
We just dropped those 2 with Tar Heel.
Yeah.
Gaia, we have one, but we haven't, that's going to be in like a month or 2. We have a collab with Mendo Grasslands, an OG from Mendocino, just a beast, like the guy that risked it all before everything was legal. A lot of these big farms out here, they waited to even grow a single plant until it was legal and they could pull these 10K permits, We were out here in the hills jumping between spots when like helicopters were flying us. Like I had a helicopter fly me when I was in a greenhouse behind my house, and I ducked behind. I was literally I had all my seed starts, so it was like a big pheno hunt. So it was like all the starts in the greenhouse real early in the year. And I hear the chopper coming. And everybody knows the fucking choppers out here. Like NorCal is kind of like damn Vietnam, like especially once the summer hits. Like it's crazy, the birds. And so I hear it coming, and it just keeps getting closer and closer. I'm like, holy shit. And I'm kind of in a residential neighborhood back then. So it gets like right over my neighbors. And I thought they were going to my neighbor's spot because they had just a big hoop. Everybody grows in Mendocino. Like you said, it's a land of its own. So I ducked underneath the plastic in my greenhouse thinking like the fucking clear plastic was going to cover me from the sky. And the cop gets right above me. It's a police helicopter. And they're supposed to be like 1,000 feet ordinance or something, but this guy was like literally probably 100 feet above me. He was right in line with like the trees. And I just ducked under the plastic like he couldn't see me, and he hit the sirens on me from the sky. So I never even knew helicopters had sirens, but it sounded like a police car, but it was from the sky. And he was hitting sirens on me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting raided. And I literally thought I was getting raided. I thought he was the chopper from the sky, and they were just coming down my driveway. I was like, this is it. this is it. And then he just hit it for like 10 seconds, which felt like 5 minutes, and then he just slowly went away. And I was like, holy fuck. So I just took it as a sign that like he was just telling me, like you can't grow here. And that was another instance where we got a U-Haul and moved the plants.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's the luckiest fucking story ever. How did he? How were they
that's
not
crazy.
fucking? Yeah, like
we have
calling out
million
everything.
stories like that, man. You wouldn't believe like the shit we've gone through out here between fires. Like I've almost lost my house like 3 different occasions. Like the big jumbo jets, like the largest air fighter in the world, has gone over my house on 2 different properties 2 different times. Like we almost lost our house 2 years ago. Somebody's house blew up in the valley. They had like a faulty igniter light on like their propane, and the fire started in this valley, and it took up like just acres and acres. And it was luckily the wind was blowing the opposite direction, or we would have lost everything. It got so bad. It was 12 o'clock in the middle of the day, but it was like midnight outside. Like you could go to like my IG for pictures. It was the creepiest thing. First it got all orange. Like it was the weirdest ambiance. It was like a Halloween like awakening or like end of the world movie. Everything got orange at like 11, but by noon it was literally pitch black, like it was midnight outside, because there was so much smoke in the air that it completely blocked out the sun completely. So me and Sam stayed there for like a day, and then we had no power, so we had like 8 freezers worth of fresh frozen, all running on generators, like our entire crop. So like everything we grew. So like you get through a whole year of just like hoping you don't get raided and hoping nobody steals your shit and hoping nothing goes wrong with the fires, and you get it chopped down and frozen, and then all the fires broke out right down the road. So after like the first day, we're about to run out of gas on all of our generators. And so I'm like, fuck. So I ended up taking, Sam had like a little transit van. So I took 2 like 14-foot freezers with me of frozen shit just to try to get some off the property. And so I started driving, and this is like a whole day after the fires broke out, and our whole neighborhood had been evacuated, and we were like one of the only ones that stayed. So it was literally a ghost town. There wasn't a single car on the road, and there was just like occasional cops parked, and I was like, oh fuck, because I had like 200K, probably like 100 to 200,000 grams of fresh frozen material on me, so they would have just charged me as all that as weed. And so I pass a couple cops and they don't do anything. I'm like, cool, they're gonna let me get out of town. And then no, I get fucking pulled over before I could get down to where the town was. And the cop comes up and he asked me like, what's going on? And I just told him that we stayed at our property to fight the fire. And he's like, all right, you don't have any drugs or anything on you, do you? And I was like, no. And he's like, all right, we're just making sure nobody's looting around here. Because like once they block off all the neighborhoods, some people try to go around and loot because they know nobody's home. It's fucked up. Yeah. So he just
the lowest of the low, man.
Yeah, he ran my credentials to make sure I didn't have a warrant or anything. Second cop pulls up and he's like, hey, what's going on? The second cop was kind of a dick. And he was asking like what I was doing. I said, we just stay with our plants. And he's like, oh, how many do you have? And I was like, oh, like 25, because I didn't remember what the legal limit was. And it was like 6 at that point. And he's like, oh shit, I have more than that. That's what the cop said to me. And then they look in the back right at the freezers. They're like, you don't got any drugs on you, do you? And I was like, no, sir. And then the other cop came back with my license, and he's like, all right, you're good to go. Just don't come back here until they open up the roads. So I got through with 2 freezers to get to another property with power. Sam stayed back for like 4 more days in the smoke and pitch black. And had to go to a neighbor's house and just find gas from different neighbors' properties to keep our generators running. He had to water one of our neighbors' gardens. Like the one neighbor was like, hey, you can take gas, just water my plants for me. Just gnarly shit we've dealt with out on the hill.
You're a beast, man.
Yo,
I love how
savage.
he sits there just silently, like what a fucking G.
Stoic as fuck.
As long as he has terps, he's okay, right?
The guy is a fucking
terps.
Legend, like
yo, for real.
risking life and limb. Like talk about fucking up your lungs. Don't worry about all the fucking BHO you smoked.
Or your wash bin, yeah.
Yeah, like fuck, man. Like that's hardcore. Did you have respirators around?
Were you wearing anything?
No.
We were just breathing in it.
Staying inside.
It sucked, honestly, because I went to a spot an hour away and it still was so bad out, like it would give you headaches.
I put like a house filter on like a fan. That kind of worked.
Yeah, seriously, that's what I would do in my house too. Just a circulating fan, and you just tape a fucking air filter, like a smoke filter to it, and that shit will be black by the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think it's fucked up.
That's wild. Was all the outdoor resin ruined, or were you able to actually like really wash
No,
that?
there was some good stuff.
There
that
was
came out
some
of
good
here.
stuff, and a lot
It
of
was definitely all smoky though.
a lot of it went to BHO, and we got the BHO back, and it like when you crack the jar, it's just like a campfire. Like I still have all the jars of BHO. I didn't do anything with it.
Dude,
I don't know
there you go. There's the aged terps with the fucking oak and fucking
Yeah, it's
sandalwood and
smoky
shit.
oak.
what make people smoke that before they get to the real deal resin. It's
Exactly.
like a
When you're
Zelda
pushing
game or
it
some
for-
shit, the Templar.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
question you get asked when you go to buy it from like the dispensary, is this your first time smoking real deal
Yeah, and
resin?
then they pull out the
Okay,
campfire.
here's a free half gram of
Yeah,
the
smoke this
campfire. You
first.
have to smoke this, and if you smoke it all, you can come back and buy the rest.
So are you guys providing SOPs to these farms you're working with as far as for post harvest practices, or is it all in their hands to get the material to you and you just get it how they bring it to you?
We work with a single source farm and we give them our SOP. And then other farms that we collab with, we give our SOP, but it seems like some will follow them and then some will kind of do it their own way too. Like if you're not there like in charge, like they might do it a little bit differently, but for the most part everybody does it pretty well. It's just you can't really cut any corners because it shows with hash. Like that's why it's an art, you know. If you cut corners with the harvest, like you leave too much like leaf, like, or if you cut too much at once and you're not getting it frozen quick enough, or if you shove the bags too full, you stuff them too full and you're just breaking the heads off. If you're just careless with it, you know, or going too fast in the process, like that stuff will all show through in the final product and the yield, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about your brand and the amount of success you've been able to see in such a short amount of time in what would be a pretty competitive space in California. I think like you've brought, meme culture, cannabis culture, and
Nostalgia.
new age marketing kind of together to build a brand. And I just want to talk about that. And, who was it? The three of you kind of coming together and that synergy kind of came up with this whole idea, or was there one guy pushing the branding from the background?
Jacob was the original designer that did every design, but the wrestling thing came about from like a meme or something, didn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
And we always just were joking around about that shit. And then the first image that Jacob made was like an actual face of a wrestler. Like it had all his eyes and his nose and everything. And then that was sick when he made that. It kind of looked like Ric Flair, but I don't know. It was just like his original character that he made. And then we decided to put the text in the face to try to avoid getting sued, but still being able to use the likeliness. And then from there, Jacob like would just crush any design I gave him because all he had to do was see the reference of the wrestler.
Yeah.
And he could just crush it because it was such a solid template. Like now, like when you see NFTs, our old logos are like perfect entities for NFTs because they're all kind of like the same kind of silhouette and it's just a bunch of different varieties, you know?
So was that like, did you know that this was fire and it was going to be received the way it was, or did you kind of put it out there and was really surprised at the reaction you got from the brand?
What did you think?
I thought we were. If you just make good resin, I feel like that'll take you places.
Yeah, but you guys did more than that. Like, I mean, I work with guys.
Yeah, I knew it was going to do good.
I know guys who just make good resin and they don't even want a logo, and the broker twists their arm and pays for a logo guy to design some logo because the guy just wants to put out good resin and that's it. And I think you guys did put out good resin, but did something else that made guys like me up in Canada notice what you were doing and follow you and really enjoy the content you were putting out. So did you know right away that like, hey, like we're onto something here and this is going to be really good? Or were you surprised by the reaction that you got, the positive reaction you got?
Well, we definitely knew that we grew fire because we weren't slackers, we weren't lazy, and we busted our asses. Like, we worked so fucking hard that we knew we were growing fire, and we were confident that it was going to make good resin. And then once we started making it and it was turning out good, it gave us a lot of confidence. And personally, like, I believed in ourselves and myself so much. Like, it was never a factor. It was never a factor if it was going to be successful. It was just when and like how long it was going to take. And it was a complete, like, we just put our heads down and removed ourselves from like social circles. We didn't do like anything fun for like 11 months out of the year. Like, we would take one vacation, but other than that, we were literally working every single day, usually like 12 hours, like no lie, like going, because like we would go points where it was just me and Sam, one other person, running the farms, and then coming back to do all the washing and switching and packaging. Like, it sucked. Like, but we worked so hard that it was never honestly a question of if it was gonna succeed. Like, and I believe that is a huge intention you have to have for your business or yourself. Like, you have to believe in yourself or nobody else will, and like, you have to have that drive, you know? But it blew up probably quicker than I imagined, because we blew up really fast from the Auti collab, like really fast. And that's when our hype was so huge that we couldn't keep up with the demand. So that all led to like almost like the mystique of the brand, because the amount of people that wanted to get to it couldn't get to it. And so I felt like it all played together. And then like when we bring in marketing, like the memes and the very clean marketing, and then the merch, and we kept all that exclusive too. So we were creating an experience for anybody that could get to it. It was just an avalanche. And then the timing too, like it just so happened that wrestling got like really trendy a couple years ago, like super mainstream, tons of documentaries were coming out. So I feel like the culture itself, like all the stars just kind of aligned. Like, I wasn't paying attention to astrology, but something aligned that with the marketing, it did hit hard. And luckily, like the wave just kind of grew itself to where, like you said, you recognized it from Canada. That was my goal, because I saw the writing on the wall with how the legalization was going and how they're lending out the square footage permits, that you're going to be absolutely fucked if you didn't have anything to separate yourself from everybody else. And it had to be genetics, and it had to be your branding, so people knew who you were. And I knew that 4 or 5 years ago. And like that, like literally I had a 5-year plan, and it was like to build a brand, to get it noticed, because I didn't have the money to go legal myself, but to become so like notorious that somebody has to see us, and then get legal. And literally this is our like 4-year anniversary, and everything that was my 5-year plan we've done, and we've gone legal, you know. We got eyes on ourselves. Like the story of how we went legal is crazy, because it was one of the spots I was renting. Again, like I was on Craigslist, I find some guy, we fucking go meet this guy and go to this crazy spot on top of this mountain, literally on top of a mountain. Like it took an hour just going up a dirt road to get to the top of the mountain on like the edge of Mendocino in Lake County. And he just had this huge traditional spot with like fucking 13 or 14 greenhouses. It was bigger than anything me and Sam had really done. We usually had like smaller spots. And so we were thinking about going in and partnering on that spot. That fell through, but that guy that I met on Craigslist happened to introduce me to his brother that was going to sell a spot. So I met him, and he takes me to his spot, and then we were going to scoop that. But then Corona hit, and that guy decided to keep his spot because he wanted like a mountain spot in case shit hit the fan. And then I was like, fuck, do you know anybody with a spot we could rent? Because we didn't really have a farm for that year. And he's like, yeah, my buddy has a spot he might rent. And so he introduced me to this other dude over the phone. And that guy had a spot, and just literally over the phone, because of the other guy vouching for him, and he just said I seemed cool. He said, yeah, you can rent my spot. So over the phone, we struck up the deal. I rent this guy's spot. It just turns out that this guy is the owner of a company that's legal in the small town we're in Willits. And he's just been an awesome individual. And he like came up and met us once, and he just saw that like we were a clean operation, and he found out who we were. He didn't have any clue who we were. And then like he saw that the brand was like big and noteworthy, and he gave us a shot and brought us in under his license. And it was all like through synchronicity, and just like I didn't know how we were going to go legal, but I had a direct intention in my mind that we were going to be legal. And I just always thought about it. I always thought about going in a dispensary and buying my stuff. I would like while I'd sit at our farm like or be ripping dabs, I'm always like envisioning what I want, and it will happen. You know, you just have to have a clear intention. You know, you have to be sending that frequency out there. and all the
Absolutely.
stars aligned for this. It was just crazy.
Absolutely. So how's that experience been, in all honesty, transitioning to the legal rec space and as a small company? What's your experience been?
It's been a huge learning experience, and it's like huge for giving us like more professionalism. Just dealing with more people, you know, we went from like a small exclusive brand that didn't have to really, like, I never cared about the public opinion of us because I was never trying to sell our product to anybody. Like, we had a small enough circle of friends that appreciated our craft, that we'd work with, that I never had to worry really about what anybody thought. But going rec now, suddenly you're available to everybody, and you have to care about what all the consumers want, and like you have to care about all their feedback. Like even if it's misguided, you know, like I have to pay attention to anybody. Like in the past, I would write people off if I knew they're just like coming from an entitled, like jerkish position. But now I can't. I have to be more professional. I have to hear everybody out and look at everything from various viewpoints. You know. So it's definitely went a long way in keeping us like mature and more professional, giving us more opportunity to work with more farms and like more legends that we didn't know before, like Mendocino Grasslands. We met them through Micah, the CEO of Leaf, because they're just old running legends together in Mendocino. We found a cool opportunity too that like we're not working with Chads and Brads. Like all the people we work with are like local legends that like did all the things that we're doing, but like they did it like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, like legends out here, our friend Kelly, who's the cultivator, like he was out here risking it before us. Like he had multiple run-ins with like the Mendocino sheriff when he was on the hills, and now he's the legal master grower for the cultivation facility that runs all of our single source. So it's been great just working with like-minded people and keeping that vibe in this industry that like a lot of it's getting sold out or just going to corporate interest, but we're trying to keep it as real as possible. And like I view myself as just an extension of the consumer, of everybody that's out there going in the store to buy our stuff. I think about what I'd want to be going in to buy. I think about the experience that I'd want. I think about shit that would be cool to me, and I think about the price point that would work for me, So I'm in here in all the meetings, and I'm trying to represent the consumer to create a brand that everybody can fuck with, like the average stoner, because that's what we are, We're out here fucking getting high, and it turned into a brand that enough people connected with that now it's actually available to the public, So the rec, it has its pitfalls, with the taxation and the supply chain that you have to deal with, and then once it gets out of your control, worrying about how other people are going to handle it, So those are the pitfalls. But I would say you got to look at it glass half full and just try to make the most out of the opportunity to be available to people,
What advice would you have for people like yourselves coming behind you when dealing with larger corporate entities? What advice would you give those people?
You got to value yourself. You definitely have to value yourself. Like I'm guilty of it at times. Like I undervalue myself for like what we've done or like maybe what we are, but like a corporate interest definitely will be quick to disvalue you if you can't prove to them like the value. Like so, you have to know the value to yourself. You have to believe in yourself and have that confidence.
100%.
And I feel like you have to have a strong moral guideline because you can't just be ready to sell out to anything that's going to like strengthen the bottom dollar.
Yeah.
You have to have something that you believe in, or your brand will just be like faceless, and it'll be like built on nothing. It'd be like all the vape companies. Like look at the top 10 or 20 vape companies, and they're probably all buying the same distillate from the same producer. So where is this brand? Like what's it built off of? Where is like the real face of it? Where's the foundation? What is this mission? I feel like if you know who you are, it goes a long way in dealing with anything, whether it's a corporate entity or just the system in general.
Do you think the culture that you've brought to the company with like the nostalgia, the memes, the cartoon aspect of it, like I feel like that brings almost the legitimacy of the brand, because you guys already bring the fire, you bring such quality resin, but then having like, it feels like an old friend going to your page, right? Like it's got like funny shit, it's got nostalgia, it's got like
have you felt
fire
constrained?
rosin.
Like have you felt constrained at all now that you went rec at wanting to express yourself in any certain way and not being able to, or have you been able to have carte blanche on expression and haven't felt confined at all?
Um, I haven't been confined at all yet, but just from like trying to be more professional, like I used to not give a fuck, like I said, and that was like part of the avant-garde, like provocativeness to the brand. But it was never to try to offend anybody. It was all for like over-the-top sarcasm, like Richard Pryor shit, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of people these days, they don't get that shit. Are you gonna go get the Reagan shit? Grab the Reagan torch. He's gonna get locked out. Watch him. I wanted to bring in the nostalgia to create the experience and like my main thing was with the humor, I want to just remove people from whatever stressors they're dealing with on the daily, you know? So like the RDR, the whole experience is supposed to remove you from like the outside world. So maybe like you come into our own little world for like the ritual of getting high or heating up your banger, you know? You have our box beside you, maybe it has a papaya fiction art, you know? So now it reminds you of a movie you watched, like that just puts you in a good circumstance, you know? So those small things are definitely intentional to just try to create a vibe that people can relate to the nostalgic aspect is when times are simpler. That's why I use all the old wrestlers primarily and not any current wrestlers, because I don't even know a lot of current wrestlers. But the old ones, like I'm a 90s baby, 91, so those are the guys that I connect to, and it takes me back to when I was just young, watching it like with my dad. Like, so like I guess that kind of goes back to like while I was a childhood education major, like just childhood it's like a pure essence, you know?
Yeah.
It's before you're really worrying about fucking bills or just everyday stress, you know? So I feel like that whole aspect has gone a long way. It's fun for me too. Like the whole thing is just fun for me. I've never tried to like gimmick anything around something that I don't believe in. Like the whole thing has just been fun. I used to say that the Jacob, like the first year that we were in existence, we had like 4 spots we were renting, and it was all on like the same hill. So we had like 4 different driveways all on this big hill in California with like 4 separate grows, so it looked like 4 little grows as opposed to one big one, because that'd be less sketchy. Because we were just cowboys when we were out here. We were risking it all every year. And I remember one day we were at this spot where like it was like an old gorilla grow spot, so we would park our trucks, but then to get our soil to where our greenhouses were, we had to fucking literally put it on our backs for like 150 yards. And there was like little bridges over these canyons and shit we'd walk over, and like we tried to wheelbarrow it, but like everything was just so uneven with like ruts and rocks and shit. Like it was just better to just literally put these bags on your back and just literally walk them 150 yards, and we were just filling up these beds. We converted a greenhouse from pots into living soil beds. And I remember it was just a beautiful spring day, and it was me, Jacob was there, Sam, and then our buddy that I went to high school with. And I wasn't pissed off or anything. Like I enjoyed the work, and I remember saying like, this is as good as it's ever going to be. Like we'll look back at like these moments as like the company, and like this is going to be the shit that we remember as being the best, because it was before like all the stress of like bottom lines and like the legal aspects and being public and having to worry about everybody's opinion, you know? It was just us on a hill doing something completely like for intrinsic value, like having the opportunity to just work hard and attain something for ourselves, you know, not being stuck in a 9-to-5 that we didn't have passion for, or like something that just sucks the soul from your existence, you know? We all were like part of something that was bigger than us, and we believed in it so heavy. Like, so that was like some of the best memories for me.
That's dope, man. How important has merch been for connecting with your consumers? Because for me, it was something that really spoke to me immediately. It was something I could go and attach myself to. As I wasn't a California resident, I couldn't go find your resin. But I think you've done a really interesting thing there. Can you talk a little bit about it?
The merch, it was honestly the first intention was to just make more people aware of our brand, because like I said, I realized that if you didn't have something to stand out, you would just be another faceless small company. Because my plan was to always be a small batch entity, you know. I never saw like going mass scale as appeasing, like internally or like for any reason, honestly, especially for our brand. So the merch was built out of a way to just get more eyes on us. And I was fine with just breaking even. Like, it was never to make a profit. I just wanted to be able to put product out there that had our name so that anybody that wore it was like a walking billboard to the brand. And then we created cool shit. So it kind of like created this, like, a following of like cool ass people like you. Yeah, you can rip it. Like, our followers like were cool, and like, so like to have cool individuals wearing our shit that might strike up a conversation with other people, like it was almost like having a bunch of reps, because I know if they're buying the shit I'm making, they're probably a cool dude because they're vibing with the same shit I vibe with, you know? So it was just trying to create like a domino of people seeing the brand, like, and honestly posting it. A lot of people would post it to their IG story. So I was just hoping that they would get our stuff, post it to their story, and it would create the butterfly effect of other followers seeing our stuff. That's honestly what the main goal was. And it was limited.
These
edition.
weren't mass produced. These weren't mass produced lines. Yeah.
All limited edition because, like, one, budget, like, we're just small, we're a couple dudes, and two, because like I wanted it to be an experience for people, like, so everything's like a time capsule. If you scoop something like that spike shirt you're wearing, that's sick as hell. Like, so you could go back at our IG and see like what we were doing along the time that we released that shirt, and just see like kind of where everything is kind of like a capsule out of like what my imagination is during the time, you know? And so that, like, that shirt, I was in the deep shit. Like, I was on the acid and the mushrooms, you know, like the Kamala shirt with the mushrooms, you know?
Yeah, I love that.
That's
shirt.
all trying to spawn, like, that's the type of shit that might go over people's head, like that turn on, tune in, drop hash, because it's a Timothy Leary quote, and it's just trying to get the people to look at things outside the box. So a lot of the mainstream people, they won't even have a clue what the fuck that shirt is about. That's why I attach like videos with Timothy Leary and stuff. It's trying to introduce people from our following base to things they might not have known about, that is like things I believe in. Like, acid throughout high school is what changed my perspective on like the system and society, and just what matters, and the big picture, you know, and appreciation. So if I can shed light on things with my brand, I'm gonna try to do it.
Yeah, man, I think you've done a really cool job, and it stands out and resonates with your target audience. I mean, the stuff that I see in there, I'm like, yo, that's what I grew up with. Like, that's so awesome. So I think that, you've done a really cool thing, and backing it up with, a true traditional market story, and producing fire product, I think is a winning combination. And I think that, your formula that you've laid out is definitely a blueprint for, people behind you to follow, and bring more brands that are more true to, the legacy roots to market. So I think that's fucking awesome, man.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you scooping the shirts, man. You're a real one. I'll send you some shit after the podcast. I was thinking about that today. I wish I could just show up with some swag for you guys, but
yeah, man, I appreciate it. I just love what you guys. I think it's really cool what you've been able to do, and it's been able to, help build my brand. I mean, I've got shirts that nobody gets, and then it's like, can you get them? Nope, you can't go get it.
Yeah, I've missed out on the drops. I'll take any old stock you got sitting in the.
Good luck. So, I think that's really cool. I think you've done a really cool. You've built a really cool following that is super valuable. Like, one thing that's really interesting is, I got involved in quote unquote legal cannabis in 2016, and we legalized in 2018. And basically, the rolling statement was that if you were involved in any traditional market brands, shut them down before legalization, or else they will have no value in the new legal market. And so
that's what they told people.
That's what they told everybody. And so
they scared you into getting out of the market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had raids on all the traditional medical dispensaries.
But nothing like camp, nothing like the raids you had. Like a couple of raids for the mail, but like nothing like California experience. Just for the newspapers. But what ended up happening is, some really traditional guys just wrapped it up and took off and took their leave to Costa Rica, and then some, got out, some stuck around, and what we realized was none of that was true. A, the enforcement that they threatened was coming, never came, and B, the value of a well-respected traditional market brand is going up by the day in Canada. And there are Chads and Brads, hungrily out shopping for some type of icon or brand that resonates with consumers because they've kind of worn out their last welcome on these new brand attempts. And so it's created a really interesting shift in the market where
So the corporate brands that thought they were too big to fail, that couldn't build any following, is now just shopping for a brand to acquire.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then so that they can say we've been around since 2015 or something.
Right. They want that street cred.
They want the street cred.
That or they're shutting their doors, which they actually are doing, or downsizing.
And so it's given an opportunity for guys who have carried brands for a long time or not so long to benefit legally. And so I'm always, I think what you guys have done is awesome. And I want to shed light on those stories. I mean, we just had an interview with a guy who left a big corporate job to start a gourmet rosin chocolate company. And in 8 months, he built it up and sent it, got it into the hands of who he needed to get it into the traditional market and built the brand. And then he's leveraged that into a full scale relationship with a licensed producer and here in Canada. And, I just think, more people like that need to be involved in the space. And so anybody who lays the roadmap out to do something like that is somebody we like to champion and highlight. And I think, you guys have done that. I wanted to ask you, what you're excited about for this coming season. Like, are there certain drops, packs of seeds, or exciting announcements that you can hint at or talk about?
We have a new pre-roll line coming out in May.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So they're called Lucha Verdes.
Hold on, yeah, hold it up again.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's awesome. So those are those infused?
It's going to be a 5-pack, and they're going to be small, like little dog walkers. I don't know if there's any in there.
Yeah, they are. That's good.
So they're small, so they can be at a cheap price
nice.
point for the consumer.
Yeah.
Something that you can just grab at the counter if you want it. It's just to walk around with and get a quick buzz. And they're all infused with rosin.
That's very cool.
Love the packaging.
And you guys recently did a collab with Fidel and released. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, this is a collab we did with Fidel. This is our rosin versus his flour.
Oh, that's
and then so we did pre-rolls, and then we did the branding with it behind like a WrestleMania rip, so it's Hashamania, and it was like a limited edition box set of 250, and they each came with 4/8 of flour, like 2 lightweight hash holes and 1 heavyweight, because we had like different sizes, and then a limited edition poster and shirt that were only available with the box, and it had the commemorative art that had the matches on the back and the artwork on the front.
That's very cool. I think that's such a cool way to connect with the consumer and, create like a collectability out of that. Like, yeah, I think that's really cool and excited to see.
And we have a gummy line out now too called High Flyers, and they're actually fire. We have a chef that works with us at our rec facility, and the first flavor we've released is Marionberry. So those are on shelves across California now.
Super good.
They're super good. They're limited to the California standards of 100 milligrams per bag, so it's 10 milligrams per gummy. But they taste so good. It's hash rosin infused, so they give you a nice clean buzz compared to like distillate eddies or any of that shit. And we're working on a second flavor for I think May 1st, and that's going to be like a cucumber melon serrano. That shit's fire too. I just tried the sample for that, and they're going to be delicious. So we're going to be dropping a new flavor for those every couple months.
That sounds incredible. Are they like a gelatin or a pectin or a balance of both?
They're vegan.
They're vegan. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, but that's probably not gelatin, right?
It's not gelatin. No.
Yeah,
that's not gelatin.
So they're vegan.
Probably pectin, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What
is that the hops? Sorry.
Yeah.
The hops?
Put the hops in there. Show them the function. I traded
go,
my
and that's
buddy
a couple.
Rosin for this.
Is that a couple years old? Yeah, it has to be, right?
Is that a
Oh,
citrine color? Is it change? Unique?
I don't know.
It's slime.
Oh, slime.
Green
Fuck yeah.
slime.
that's beautiful.
She ripped
Nice.
Killer function.
Functions on those are just Jameson, have you hit a haps?
No.
Those are ones that you can just fucking destroy.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I just need
Functional
my
beast.
next gen upgrade from my hardcore, and I'll be good to go. I just need
That
this.
one looks like it fucking shreds too.
It shreds.
What is that?
Man.
Yeah, he can fucking.
Is that a
rip it.
Haps?
Hardcore
Who's
toe.
made that?
Hardcore toke.
Oh,
And,
nice. Nice.
but, like,
I hear his pieces really rip.
Bro, they rip so like I
Yeah,
take
because
tabs.
when he does his videos, he like fucking shreds them, man.
Bro, he's like a minimum half-gram dabber. Like that guy makes me look like I have small dabs.
Shout out
RJ.
Mission Hill Melts.
Oh,
Shout out Mission Hill.
Little sponsorship.
That's awesome. Yeah,
RJ and I are
Love
much
to
more
the gang.
traditional.
Yeah. The traditional boys over here with the ships.
I've just had this for 10 years. That's the only difference.
I've only had mine for a year and a half.
Hell yeah.
He's got
dude.
a JD.
JD
Nice.
from the old
now.
days.
Did you buy the mothership at the dip, or did you get it at the high?
Is that
I
the
got
two-
them before the hype.
Yeah.
I got some
way,
like
before there
way
was a
before
dip.
the hype.
before the hype, yeah. Like I got them like 2012 to 2014 is when I got
Holy
my motherships.
shit. How do you keep it so clean?
Bro,
Did you not see the
Oh
the
yeah,
thing
I
that
did see that video, guys. That's
Always cleaning his glass.
I haven't spoken half the episode because I've been fucking cleaning it.
You guys should just have a counter up in the corner, and every time he cleans his banger, it just tallies it up.
I would, except
Because-
it's just too much work, man.
It's-
This guy is just
well,
fucking
it's-
constantly doing it.
It's an ongoing joke. That's why like that had to get made and posted because like it's what it is.
But what's ended up happening is now he's got fucking 10, 12-year-old pieces that are in pristine condition that, have gone past some of these dips and now have gone crazy in value. He's got AKs.
Yeah, if the bottom says 2011, you could just make it a 2019.
Yeah, it's I mean 2012 JD, so I'm pretty stoked on that.
Half of those
I don't think
artists,
it's-
not all of those artists aren't even with Mothership anymore.
No. So
you guys-
blessed.
You guys talked about this is the year for sours for you, and I always like to ask any maker that I have on, where you think the market's trending as far as flavor profiles go, and I think that's really interesting. Like, are you guys going back into the old sours, or are you looking through like the San Sauchi and stuff that Bloom has done some newer work?
We're doing the San Salchi, we're doing the stuff from Bloom, and I got the stuff from Aficionado. I got lucky and I got the Alder Point and Leggett Sour. The two different sours he had available at the Ego Clash. I got both of those to try this year. So we're going to be pheno hunting all that. And then, what other sours do we have?
We can get that.
Sour Kush Mints. We just ran some sour
Yeah,
Kush Mints from
sour Kush
Mendoza actually that turned out fire. And we just ran some sour,
Sub sour. We could get sub sour this year.
we ran Sour Wilson from Valley Grove as an R&D batch that turned out really nice too. So I'm excited. There's a lot of people that are bringing back sour.
Are you guys like Desert Island? If you got to take one jar, are you a gas or a funk or a fruit?
Skittles all day.
Garlic juice.
Yeah.
Garlic juice, or garlic juice is like a sour, so that's why I take that. But that's what I'm on. I would smoke it all fucking day. Skittles, I could smoke a lot of, but I'm starting to get like I can't smoke it all day like I used to.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about
I'm
you
surprised.
guys?
I'm surprised about the
I take like a garlic cookies, a garlic juice, something like that, like something
GMO or GMO derivatives all
smells
fucking
like
day.
a bad tooth.
Yeah, you love your GMO.
Yeah, GMO, garlic
People
cookies.
fucking love GMO.
I got tired of GMO and didn't grow any of it last year just because it was so blown out. But like
Everybody, there's always
everybody
people
loves
that love it, dude. GMO is one of those like Skittles. It's like a Skittles flavor.
GMO
I think that's one that gets more dank as you cold cure, to the point where like, you could do a 4 or 5 month cold cure and it's like it hurts your nose.
GMO to a hash smoker is like OG to a flower smoker. Like it has stain
Especially
count,
if you take it long, like 70
Yeah.
days, 80
Yeah. It's
days.
got an audience. It's got people who will always stand up for it. Like I'll be 10 years from now, people will be like, I got some GMO. I'll be like, yo, I'll try anybody's GMO. I won't try anybody's mimosa.
I was just about to
So,
say, is that what you said about mimosa though 5 years ago? Because I didn't know you.
No. I liked mimosa 5 years ago. I would smoke it, but like I like GMO is something that is different. Like it's a different thing.
I like mimosa. There's a bad stigma around it because of like orange terps, but we have this cut that's amazing.
Fucking incredible cut.
It's just got to go through. It's like it's incredible how much meme culture has influence. And like I work with a lot of larger Canadian licensed companies, and they give me lists of genetics that they would be looking for, and there's like all these old throwbacks, and then you'll see like something that'll like Oreos, and you'll be like, what? Who? Where are you getting this information? Like, and it's so funny because it's meme culture that from California that like kind of somehow penetrates the industry just ever so slightly, and then you see these funny influences come up with requests and talking to marketing teams who have no business being in cannabis. And then they ask you a question. You're like, where did you glean that information? They're like, oh, we saw this meme. And, we know we don't want any more wedding cake. There's too much wedding cake. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? And they're like, oh, well, we've seen it online. And that's what our consumers want. So I think that people who are making these memes in Cali don't even know the far-reaching ramifications that they have on the
That's crazy. Yeah. Because a lot of my memes, dude, are made at the fucking seat of my pants. Like they're made 5 seconds before they get posted. It's not like I make a meme and I plot it out,
think about it,
and I go to sleep and I'm like, yeah, I should post it today. I just
Have your social media team review it.
Something usually happens and I'm like, oh shit, that's a meme. And I immediately just make it and it's getting posted. I used to be ridiculous and just go on tangents of posting too many, but I'm trying to reel it back.
What's the most surprising profile that you guys have encountered lately, like that has really surprised you?
The Vision from fucking Archive last year was crazy. I think it was like a fucking zested fish, like a zested lemon fish. It was insane, dude. It was literally the most unique terp I've came across since black garlic. Black garlic was like around before the GMO. I tried that the first year I moved to California, and we bought like, what was that first press? That huge one? What was that first rosin press? That huge steel Sasquatch. I bought one of those, and we just harvested our weed and literally just squished it right off the plant, like just wet. Like we didn't know what and it was oozing all this gold shit, fucking a lot of it too. And I was like, whoa, like we're onto something. But a lot of it was water. It was just crackling on the plant. But it turned out so beautiful, dude. But the black garlic from back then was insane. It was literally like having like an Italian meal, like it was like GMO on steroids. Like I don't know.
Wow.
It was fire. I forget who the hell it was from. It was some Emerald Triangle seed company that we popped the seeds from.
Interesting. Pre-GMO,
Zested
GMO.
fish.
Like it will
Zested
like
fish.
it's like it'll burn your nostrils. It's like if you would light a match too close to like your nostrils or something. Like that's what like the black garlic was. Like it could just like bring tears to your eyes, like smelling salts, but like just have your tongue like coated in like a garlic bread expression. It was nuts.
That's wild.
It's like an Italian dinner.
Sorry, what was this strain from Archive that tasted like
The Vision.
The Vision.
It's
Okay.
like lemon G and something else.
So like legit fish vibes coming off.
Oh yeah. Like raunchy fish, not fishy, slimy fish. Like raunchy, like cooked. Like whoa, like I'm at like the French Laundry. Like they're bringing out my fish. Like
I might be good on that one, bro.
Yeah, like
pampered chef fish, bro.
Wow.
That's interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Like Michelin rated fish, bro.
What else stood out to you at Eagle Clash? And how was your experience at Eagle Clash?
He ripped all the dabs. I smoked 2 dabs, and one of them got second place.
Sam, I love you, bro. That's awesome.
Dude, it was awesome.
The quiet night in the back.
I was talking to Adam and Hannah about it. Like everybody's got like a 2-man team that they can tag out on, and the fact that you're like, nah, I'll just take all of them. It's fine.
Yeah.
Wait, except for Shiragam, did he hit them all by himself?
I don't know if he took them all by
Our
himself.
one buddy brought a whole gang of dudes and then just ended up ripping all the dabs himself. It's so funny.
That's hilarious. Oh man! So what stood out to you, man? Like, was it? There were probably like 4.
Oh, dude, there was so much. There were so many good like Skittle tasting ones.
The only one I tried that the one who got second was West Coast Alchemies, and it was fire. The Rainbow Belts mix.
Yeah, there were so many good ones.
Like gassy fruit. I feel
Everything.
like that's what everybody was going for, was to mix
Everything
some
was
gas
good.
with some fire like Skittles terps. Like Rainbow Belts. That's why everybody is looking for Rainbow Belts, because they want a Skittles terp that grows better than Skittles.
Yeah.
This OGZ from Mendoza is pretty wild terp right now. It's like a really good OG and Skittle mix.
I really like his apricot octane too.
Yeah, that's
I love that
really
shit.
bomb.
That's fucking dope. I hope to attend one day. That's pretty fucking dope, man. I like to ask everybody that went, like, you know, what stood out, and what was their favorite. And that's very cool. Were you guys at the Legends dinner?
No, we didn't make it. That was in SoCal, so we didn't make it all the way down for that.
They're doing a NorCal one, so
That's what they said.
Yeah.
It was too much of a hash grab.
Yeah,
NorCal, the Ego Clash is right in our backyard, so that's easy to get to.
yeah, absolutely. Did you guys go to Emerald this year, or do you guys go to
Yeah,
Emerald?
we went for a day.
It's not the same. The vibe is dying.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be fully dead now that it's in LA, and you know Gary Vee. And,
Yeah, we entered some stuff, so we will see.
Well, okay. So what did, like? I know you kind of touched on it, but I really kind of want to ram it home for anybody watching in the California market. Like, what advice would you have for brands similar to yourselves who are trying to come up? Like, I know you mentioned value yourself, but is there anything else that you would, you know, wish you would have learned earlier in your journey? And if not,
We've been pretty lucky, dude. We've had our fucking heads on straight. Like, I don't know if I would switch much up.
No,
We
work hard.
We've worked our asses off. Like,
Yeah.
So like everything like we've done has been pretty on point to get us here and to keep it going. Like a lot of fucking hard work. Like a lot of people had the misconception that they saw the memes and shit and they thought we were just like some hype boys or just some kids that like bought other people's melt to squish and created like a rosin brand. And then you realize like we were out here running multiple grows, like multiple like off-grid grows, like no power shit, like driving hours between the spots to grow the shit, harvest it ourselves, small teams, you know, literally no mommy and daddy money, literally all grassrooted from what we hustled.
Yeah.
So, yeah, honestly, I don't think I would change much.
I think that's maybe though the differentiator is that you've got the memes, but you've got the hard work and like the grind to back it up, right? Like it's one thing to produce fire because there's a lot of people that can produce really good stuff. It's another thing to create the culture and the meme culture and the following, and to do both and really just to, I mean, not need to waver in any sort of way and sticking true to basically who you are. It's awesome because it's like the real ones have prevailed, you know, like
fighting the good fight still. I don't know. Still fighting the good fight for sure.
That's why we fucking did go wreck, because I was thinking about it from the perspective of if everybody who is real removes themselves from trying to go legal, the whole entity is going to be fucked. Yeah. And then for anybody that's new, like if I was young right now and coming up and like if I was looking towards like the legal weed scene to see like what weed was about, that would suck. Like if that's what you thought like this whole community was built on, you know? Mm-hmm. Like we all have things that are like more intrinsic to us than just like a number or like another stat to make somebody a consumer, you know? Like a Kendall Jenner line of weed, you know? Like do you think she had anything to do with that fucking weed or anything, you know? Like all the celebrity cannabis, like I don't know.
The
It's
hype boy
definitely
shit.
a division. Like there's going to be a commercial side of cannabis, and it's going to get to the point where there are different conferences for them and us, and we're catering to a whole different crowd where somebody is just using this as promotion, and there's no care and love in what's in the bag or the jar, and then there's going to be consumers who care about that what's inside more than what's on the package, but still want to identify with brands. So I think you guys are shouldering yourself out a really cool space, and I think you're setting an example for a lot of people on how it can be done and how a small group of guys can connect with a whole lot of people. So I commend you for that, man. Like both of you, like where can people find you guys? Like in stores in Cali, where can they find your merch? Where can they find your hash? Where can you be found?
Our merch is at headyslaps.com, and our link is in the bio of our Instagram. And then all of our product is throughout California. I think we're in 70 shops now, from I know as far north of Humboldt all the way down to San Diego, right by the border of Mexico. We're working on a new website. We have rodeoresin.com as just like a placeholder to like send emails if you're interested in carrying us. But I'm working on a new website that will have all of our merch and our products and where we're available. It's being built out right now, so hopefully that's launched by next month. And then you'll be able to just scroll through and see all the different shops. But in the Bay Area, we have a bunch. We're at like the Fog Center. My good friend is an owner there, so I got to shout them out. They've been supporting us since day one. Fog Center in Pacifica. March and Ash were like the first company that took a chance on us, like when we were going rec before, like a lot of the rec people that weren't familiar with the traditional side, like the more underground people, they still gave us a big shot to bring us in right from the beginning. March and Ash in San Diego, and then like Urban Leaf and Compassionate Heart, that's where we used to buy all of our Skittle slabs that got us interested in all this.
Shout out to
Compassionate Heart and Ukiah, Lem, like I used to just buy them out, and then it just turned into us realizing, oh shit, we're giving them all of our money, we're gonna go broke, we need to make this shit ourselves. And that literally made the brand. Like Real to Resin wouldn't happen, so we got to shout them out. Now they carry us, so like it's such
So cool.
I can go into that shop and buy my own shit, and it's just crazy, man. Coming from Pennsylvania, where like we risked getting popped big time. Like I have several friends that got fucked. Like we were doing a lot of shit back there. Like people don't really know how much like we really risked to even get in the position to try for the first year. They see memes and a lot of people misconstrued it. Like we were like a more privileged group or something that we weren't, but they didn't realize it was just a couple guys that were risking it and working their asses off.
Straight up, man. Tons of respect for what you guys have done. I'm stoked to continue to watch what you're doing. Thank you so much for taking the time, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, guys. You guys are fucking dope.
Yeah,
Sam,
man.
we're gonna connect one day, and we're gonna puff, man. I'm stoked to connect with both of you.
Yeah, let us know when you come to NorCal next.
Absolutely, for sure.
We'll eventually all make it down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
And dabs will be had.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Like and subscribe.